Oh, yeah, they are filming. Oh, I was just asking if they were going to film us tonight, and I just noticed it's up. There we go. Yeah, it's on.
Hello, I would like to reconvene this Washington Unified School District Regular Board of Education meeting for July 13th, 2017. And let the record reflect that all board trustees are present. And can I have Don Stauffer lead us in the pledge, please?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, announcements of action taken in closed session. We had Government Code 54956.9, pending or potential litigation, information received, and E2 Government Code Section 54957, public employee discipline, dismissal release, information received. Are there any changes to the agenda?
President Kirby Gonzalez, if I may make a correction on our agenda, under consent agenda item M.7, where it says approval of contract services with Wallace Cool and Associates for special inspection on the River City High School turf replacement. It actually should state approval of contract services with Wallace Cool and Associates for Riverbank Elementary School roof repair. The supporting document for this particular agenda item is reflective of Riverbank Elementary School roof repair.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other changes? With that, can I get a motion to approve the agenda with the change to M7?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I too vote aye. Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to association reports, and we have WTA.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate Jackie Wong on her new assignment. Obviously, you'll be working in an area where you have considerable expertise and passion, and so it appears to be a win-win for everyone involved, especially California's foster youth. I have more details on the Institute for Teaching grants that received by USD educators. Turns out there were a total of 4 granted to WSD teachers. The first one is called iPick Arts, Igniting Passion, Inquiry, and Choice Through Arts Education. And the teachers involved are Trish Diedrich, Paige O'Donnell, Holly Pollack, and Gretchen Persons from Stonegate. And this project will be a year-long student-driven inquiry project that uses a study of art as a catalyst for developing 21st century educational skills. The next grant is STEM Elementary Enrichment. The teachers are Julie Law, Tessa Havlin Martinez, Sarah Bowling, Joanna Walkowski, and Claudia Santos of Bridgeway. And this is a continuation of a grant that was started last year. And it will, again, involve projects and engaging activities for students in grades K-5 in the STEM area. The third project is called The Garden, Wiggly Worms to Yogurt. And the teachers here are Regina Bozeman, Tammy Moulton, and Penny Schatzel at Southport. This project will have a goal of making garden curriculum accessible to all K-5 teachers at Southport. It's an existing program that they're bringing in. I asked where the yogurt part came in, but I guess that has to do with some of the activities they do in the class. I was trying to make the connection between digging up worms in the garden to the yogurt, and so it is a slightly separate activity. The fourth grant, which actually is the one I think is most exciting, is YOLO Alternative Handball League. And the educators there are Ophelia Coronel, Paul Dennis, Mark McVicker, and the principal, Alejandro Ramos. And this will create an interscholastic sports program for students who attend YOLO, because they don't have a program. So I think this is a really great thing for them. Moving on a bit, I should have a package for you up on your, in front of you at the dais. I want to just spend a couple minutes with that. At the very front, there will be a couple of graphs. So I'm going to find them. And this is before I took off back east. Reading the morning news, the caffeine must have kicked in, so I decided to do a little analysis. There was an article in the Bee about SAT scores and in River City High School. We were at the lower end of things, and I wanted to look at it and see if I could put it in context. So if you look at the side that says SAT scores based upon percent poverty, I put all the schools that were mentioned there in the graph and then had a regression line drawn, trend line. I didn't post the statistics, but it's actually pretty powerful. About 70% of the variance was described by the line. You know, the poverty explains 70%. That's pretty strong correlation. I did put labels on some of the schools that stood out, like Mira Loma, which you would expect it would do stand out at the high end since they have the IB program. Davis, of course, Futures. River City is pretty much right on the regression line. And so even though our score is low, it's what you would expect with the population that we are serving. Obviously, that doesn't mean we can just relax now. We have a lot of work to do. But it puts it in a context. It's not as horrible as a first appearance. I thought maybe there might be another story there, so I did another graph, which is on the other side, and this is percent taking the SAT based upon the percent poverty. And you'll notice there's a number of schools that stand out there, West Campus, Sac High, and all of those kids basically at those schools take the SAT tests. And if you look at the bottom, you'll see Visions, Heritage Peak, Options. These are independent or online schools, and you can see they're not designed for kids who are planning to go to college. Very few of those kids take the SATs. But if you look at River City, we're above the trend line, which indicates that our counselors and our staff are pushing our kids to take the SAT. So even though we have a fairly large number of kids in poverty, we're pushing them to move on, which is a good thing. So I thought this was a good story to tell, so I wanted to share it with you. And finally, I put in part of the survey that we did this spring on morale among our teachers. And there are a series of graphs there and then comments at the end. I think if there's any overall story there, you'll see that teachers are fairly happy. I think there's a fair amount of residual feeling about last year's negotiations issues. So it's obviously some work we want to concentrate on in this upcoming year. And it's fairly borne out in the comments at the end of the thing. And not all the comments were negative. Obviously, you get people who have a bone to pick to write things down. But some of the comments were in the positive side, which I was encouraged by. So anyway, with that, thank you very much. And remember, on August 11th, we're going to have the new employee orientation. It will be held at Bright, and they will be having the bus tour, and I know at least one trustee has not been on the bus tour yet, so it'd be worth worthwhile taking that trip, and look forward to seeing you then, if not before. Thank you.
Don, can I ask you a quick question? On the charts here that are bearing out numbers that are 1 through 5, is 5 being yes, I strongly agree, or no, I strongly disagree?
Strongly disagree. And then
Okay, so 1 is strongly agree.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I think I put the actual survey in there, which shows that. Look in the back.
Oh, right at the front. All
Yeah,
right.
okay,
Yeah.
it is there. Okay, good.
Okay. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and that takes us to the CSEA report.
Hi, I'm Karen Friedland, and tomorrow we're going to be having, the M&O department is having their yearly training for the Riverbank, and they usually have it at the end of the summer, but they decided to have it kind of middle of summer so that the custodians are able to get all their stuff done and not be interrupted. And all the summer construction improvements are going well, according to our maintenance lead. And he thanks the board for supporting all the maintenance and improvements. And our CSEA board has been meeting during the summer, and our reps are getting ready to go to the CSEA conference in Las Vegas in a couple weeks. And also, I know that this Washington Unified is supporting the National Night Out, and I just want you to know that our block on Laurel Lane is having a block party again this year, so we'll be getting visits. So we're looking forward to that. That's it.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. All right, that takes us to public comments. I don't have any public comments right now, but I am going to quickly read our disclaimer because there might be some later. And so members of the public may address the board on topics that are under the jurisdiction of the board, although not under the agenda for this time. Although, let me read the rest in case anyone wants to make a remark on the agenda. And if you do want to make a remark on the agenda, we ask that you do it before the end of the staff report, before our discussion begins. And the board may limit the total time for public input on any topic to 20 minutes unless as it chooses to waive the item limit for a particular item. Individual speakers may be limited to 3 minutes to comment on any topic. Public comments consisting of individual charges, complaints, or derogatory remarks about any district employee are requested to be submitted in writing to the administration in accordance with the district's complaint procedure. And we do recognize for a lot of people, commenting before the board and the audience and the people watching at home on television is a nerve-wracking experience. So to make that as easy as possible, we ask that there not be any applause or booing or catcalling or any other demonstrations to maintain a civil discourse here in the chambers. Okay, and then that takes us to our board and superintendent comments. So, Board Trustee Wong, are you ready?
Thank you, Don, for congratulating me. For those of you who aren't on Facebook, I actually just took a post with the California Department of Education, helping to actually implement their foster youth services program that will help implement the local control funding formula, as well as the Every Student Succeeds Act as it pertains to students in foster care. It's a challenging time for all, and so that's where my heart and passion are. So I decided to go back to executive branch because I think that everything that we've ever advocated for on the advocacy side, implementation is key, right? Local solutions for local problems. And hoping to kind of support districts and county offices of education in terms of meeting their roles and obligations to students in foster care. So that's what people are talking about. Other than that, and so I appreciate and really excited about kind of returning to that body of work. So I don't have a lot to share other than Vice President Pizzotti and I have met with Superintendent Luna and gone over some board policies, and we've begun to go through some legislation that may be impacting our district, and we'll talk about kind of our positions on that. And I believe that Vice President Pizzotti will actually be talking a little bit later about kind of some things that he may be taking on individual comments on that were kind of not voted on in our subcommittee, but we can update folks on in governance later. I also wanted to actually acknowledge Krista Koch. I actually, at the State Board of Education meeting yesterday, ran into Kenji Hakuda, who was actually from the Graduate School of Education at Stanford, and was talking about kind of the wonderful work that she was doing with our grant with English language learners, and super excited because he just had nothing but good things to say about what was going on in Washington Unified with our English language learner program. As well as I wanted to actually acknowledge Renee Collins. I had a meeting with Chris Warden about from Future Ready, who is actually working with us on our Career Pathways program and internship programs, and super excited about that evolution. So a lot of really great things that are happening in Washington Unified, and just wanted to share. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Okay, Trustee Alcala.
Thank you. I attended NALEO, and that's the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, in Dallas on June 22nd through the 24th, and it was a very productive conference. They had sessions there where many school board members and also senators, congressional people, mayors from across the United States met. I was very much interested in attending the educational track that they had. One of the most interesting lectures that I attended was Preparing Our Next Generation, STEM and Young Dual Language Learners. And it was showing the research how dual language learners who are enrolled in quality early childhood education programs with exposure to strong math skills demonstrate positive long-term academic, socio-emotional, and economic outcomes. And in the session, we were able to find out about the best practices and policy recommendations to enhance the DLL. But it was really a wonderful opportunity to meet with other board members, and there's great concern, obviously, with what's happening nationally with the current presidential administration, just devastating our educational budget. Some of the cuts that are being made are Special Olympics, for example, will no longer be funded through education as they have been. And this wonderful conversations that we had, of course, were on Common Core, the different approaches, the successes, and of course the struggles that different board members are experiencing, not just here in California, but throughout the United States. And we were actually applauded for California's strong stance on our sanctuary status, as well as resolutions that school boards such as ours have supported as safe havens for children. This was especially applauded in Texas, where they do have SB 4. It's a law that basically does racial profiling of Latinos, and it affects Latino children in the schools. So it was a very wonderful conference in terms of being very proactive on things that we can do to help our children. But also, it was a great conversation. It was a comprehensive conversation on things that are happening in our nation. So I feel that this and the materials that I bring, I'd love to be able to share with our other board members. And just one more thing. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, I participated in with the California Nurses Association. We're hoping to have SB 562 passed, and that would be health care for all here in California. It's being put on hold for about 2 years, but we know that we see poverty every day here in our district. 1 in 5 California children, live in poverty, as it is if the presidential administration has its way. We will no longer have a safety net, health care for our families. So we're hoping California legislators pass 562, at least have some conversations regarding the mechanisms and funding, because this is something that we need for our children. And we had other board members from Sacramento as well, and other parts of the state come out in support of getting 562 off the shelf. And we're hoping that our legislative leaders will develop a little backbone and do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so that takes us now to Board Trustee Cruz.
I don't have any committee reports. The Yolo County School Board, our association has not met since our last meeting. I want to thank Mr. Stauffer for your analysis on the SATs. For the last 2 years, I have brought our local process at our high school to this board, and it's very concerning. One thing you did mention is the poverty level, and I will let you know that as a junior, a certain person that I know took the test, and I'm the PSATs, and so he took them as a sophomore and a junior, and as a junior, we have the sophomore and junior class, we have about 1,000 students, and they had 50 slots open, which I think is just appalling. If we have 1,000 students and they have 50 slots open, they did open for 25 more. So out of 1,000 students, it was the PSATs were offered to 75 students. And personally, I think we could do a lot better than that. I also brought up many times that being that we are in a socioeconomic community, that they charge $15 per student to take the PSAT, which in my opinion tells students if you can't pay $15, you can't take the test. And I know we threw around the district paying that $15 and opening up many more slots. I will tell you that I don't think it's a great increase. My sophomore took the PSATs as a junior, and his scores went up 10 points. To me, that's unacceptable. Maybe to some, that is a great accomplishment. I don't know. But I think we have a lot to do, and we talked about making it a community event for all of our students, supporting our students, really making them take that SAT, the PSATs. Right now, we're eagerly awaiting the SATs for the first time, so I'm hoping he went up more than 10 points. But I think there's curriculum that we can be instituting in the high schools, preparing our students for PSATs. A certain person I know was told about an app. Here's an app. Go kind of do it yourself, figure it out. We went on Khan Academy. So while we are striving, I think there's a lot more we can do to really help our students and tell them the importance of taking that PSATs. A lot of students don't know it is so important as an 11th grader to take that PSAT, because if you don't take it as an 11th grader, you may not get some money just simply by not taking that PSATs at 11th grade. And I learned that from PK, so while there's things happening, I think there's a lot, not just the board, the district, the teachers, but our community need to come together and really stress the importance of that PSATs, SATs. I know we have a lot of engineers, a lot of intelligent people in our community that can really come forward and start tutoring our students. And really, we need to stress the importance of these tests to get our kids to get into college. So I do want to thank you for that analysis, but I think we still have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. Board Vice President Pizzotti?
Thank you. I think it was about 2 weeks ago that Trustee Wong and I met, not quite 2 weeks ago, okay, well, yeah, that. We met to go over some policies, and we probably made it through, maybe 50 bills that CSBA tracks and it has positions on. There's probably an additional 150 to 200 more that we still have to go through and see whether or not we agree with where they're at and what we believe is, some sort of concurrence with their positions. And that's kind of what we've been doing, is looking at their position and then deciding, do we concur from our perspective with where they're at on it. And generally we have been for the most part. Then on, I think it was actually yesterday in Senate or Assembly Education Committee, SB 328 was up, and that is a school start time bill, which says middle schools and high schools in the state should start at 8:30. And I happen to be a very big supporter of that. And I actually went and testified on behalf of myself and I was very clear when I said that I am in support of SB 328 as a Washington Unified School District trustee. But I also found out in reading the bill that it does not apply to charter schools. So I said also in my testimony that I am in support of this bill if it is amended to include explicitly charter schools. Because it doesn't seem to be fair that one set of schools is being held to this standard and not the other, even though charter schools are supposed to be about choice and flexibility. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have science saying that starting later actually helps kids better. So we should be focusing on that. So that actually set off a bit of a conversation between our assembly member, Kevin McCarty, and the author. And Mr. McCarty was astute in his comments, saying that we should be including everybody and making this very inclusive. The bill did get out of committee, and it'll be going to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. This is a bill that CSBA opposed, and opposed pretty viciously. So anyway, that's one of the reasons why I took my position on it and said something that I felt I couldn't agree with their position on.
So as a point of clarification, it was not reflective of, for the whole board's opinion, so it wasn't Washington Unified School District Board?
That's what I said.
Even though you said that you were a board trustee, I just wanted to be clear about that understanding, hopefully from the legislature, that it was you as Kobe Pizzati.
That's what I said, yeah. So, yeah, I was very clear in saying I myself, as Kobe Pizzati, Washington Unified School District trustee, am in support. So, then, let's see, just today, I visited the ESL summer school class of Ms. Rasky with President Kirby Gonzalez. And the theme in their class was coral reef. And I was given a tour by two very lovely young ladies who basically showed me every single thing they've learned this year from top to bottom, and even sang me a little song, which I thought was lovely. And Ms. Rasky showed me basically what they knew. She had papers of when the class basically started in the early part of the summer school program, and then what they learned just last week. And basically it was one paragraph, like barely a paragraph, from when they started in the first part of the year, and then pages, like front to back, of what they now know. And their grammar was infinitely better, and these are ESL students. This is amazing. I was so proud of how much they've learned and grown in just the short summer school period. So I thought that was really wonderful. And and then on this coming Saturday, in 2 days, I am judging the Moose Lodge's cupcake contest on Saturday, and I'm finally glad that my talents are being put to good use. That's it.
How do I follow that? Okay, I do not have any committee updates. I do want to thank Don Stauffer for letting us know about the Institute for Teaching grants. And I know that WTA was instrumental in training teachers and how to do those grants and how to fill them out. And so thank you for that, because it definitely is an important partnership that brings a lot of revenue into our district. So. And then, as a reminder, yes, we are doing National Night Out as a board. I hope we can all make it. And then we also do have a special board meeting for August 26th that will be our board.
August 26th.
Okay. For August 26th, yes. So to confirm that with everyone here. And Yes, the summer school program, to give another shout out to Krista Koch, who's running that summer school. She has really done an outstanding job. The difference that I've seen in that program since when I first came on the board with where it is now, it's a huge difference. It's the students are so proud of their work, and when you walk in that room, you can just feel the learning and the growth that's taken place. The students run up and they give you a tour of the room, and so they're working on those oral skills too of explaining what they did and what they've learned. It was all about coral reefs. They went to the IMAX to watch a movie about the coral reefs. Everything is tied in together with the students to make it hands-on, real-world experience, and I really love talking to the families there and the parents. And one student has been here for only 6 months, and the amount of, and you would never know that. She was so wonderful to speak with, and it was so exciting to see the work that they were doing with their kids. And we just have some very, very talented people in this district that are doing great work together with the parents. And with that, I also had Councilmember Joe Hannison reach out to me recently and say, talk about the influx of Afghan refugees that we've had. He wanted to make sure that we have parenting classes, which we do offer. And so, not parenting classes, I'm sorry, English classes that we're offering through our adult school to help people learn English. And so it was very timely because today on that campus, on the summer school campus, one of the teachers told me that she has had an influx of Afghan refugees. And one of the teachers actually led professional development to talk to everyone there, the staff, about kind of that some cultural competency, right, to understand what to look for, what needs that these students might be coming with. And that was really special. And then I went into the office and they told me that they're in the process of hiring an Afghan translator, since we do not have one right now. So that was very special to see that come full circle, the work that we're doing, knowing that the city, we also have city council members who are working to make sure that our families are all supported. And then also with that, I know we're going to be getting our numbers for our River City High School students who've graduated and where they're going. We've had that in the past of if they're going to, which colleges that they're going to. Are they going into a job? Where are they going? And we've had that in the past where they go to a two-year college, they have a job now, they're looking for a job, that type of thing, apprenticeship programs. And I think that'll be great for us to see, because we can also look at, this was the first year of the College Promise. And so if you've seen on some of the signage around, if you're at any of the community campuses now, they say River City High School grads, you can come for free. And so it'd be interesting to see how many students we've had take advantage of that. And that would be great to get for us, and then also for maybe the website, for the high school website. Okay, and I will just end with that we have had, some of us get to enjoy a little bit of vacation time. Every time at the district office you go by, you see a lot of cars there, and of course at summer school there's been a lot of cars there. So we have a lot of staff that is working very, very hard this summer, as we'll see with the of all of the facility projects that have been done too. So I hope before school starts that the rest of your summer, since we won't see each other until August, is sweet and savory, and I do have some little chocolates for those of you that make it to the end.
If you don't make it to the end,
then you don't get a chocolate. All right. And that takes us to the superintendent update.
Thank you, President Kirby Gonzalez, Board of Trustees, staff, and guests. This evening, I just wanted to share a little bit about where I've been and then highlight a specific program that our district has invested in for many, many years, except now the program is changing a little bit. And so I just wanted to talk about that because it is an investment in our district that we specifically have in our LCAP. Also, thank you, Trustee Cruz, about your comments about the SATs and how we need to prepare our kids more. And the board did talk about, how can we get more kids taking the PSAT, because it is, when we have hundreds and hundreds of 10th grade students, there should not be an option. And so I believe we have in the LCAP, and I'm going to check on that, but I believe as one of the action steps in the LCAP for this coming year, we set aside monies in the supplemental concentration grants to specifically pay for every 10th grader to take the PSAT. And the whole thing on that, it's not the money that's the issue. The issue is being named a facility to take to host the PSAT. But this is a great investment because we want to make sure that no students think or assume that they cannot do this. And we want to ensure that we provide every opportunity for that. So we did hear the board's leadership on that, and we completely agree with that. So we'll make sure that we follow up on that. There's other things that we can do too. We used to do boot camps for Casey when Casey was a requirement, and we certainly can do SAT boot camps and things like that. So we can definitely look at how to better set our students up for success in those specific opportunities. So I wanted to let you know that today over at the NCCT program, they had the hazmat training and certification going on. I think that's actually pretty cool. Thank goodness it's not 108 degrees because I know that the hazmat suits and all of those kinds of trainings are very rigorous and very hot. And so I just wanted to let you know that that is going on, that went on today at the NCCT program with some of our students. Oh, wait. Oh, am I going to be able to play that? Okay. All right. So I also was at the summer school this morning, and this is my second year seeing summer school, and it is a completely different program even in the past year.
So is that you in the hazmat suit?
No, that's not me in the hazmat suit. Though I could have gone. I would have been interested in doing that. But I wanted to let you know that in the summer school, it is a completely different program. And it's because, the board has given that leadership and investment of new curriculum, embracing the new standards and embracing all of the new rigor that we can provide to our kids. So I wanted to show you just a little bit of a clip of the summer school. This is
Before you start the summer school?
Yeah.
How is this pre-apprenticeship construction training, how is that
Advertised?
Advertised, because I haven't even heard of it, and my son's at the high school.
Yeah, I don't know how it was advertised. Sometimes we get the brochures and flyers. I can check on that, but I'm not sure how it was advertised, whether it was actually through NCCT and not through us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because we want our kids to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Want to know why, call us back. If you want to know why, call us back.
This is about coral reefs.
Coral colors are dying, ecosystems and deadly leaves. That is one reason why, call us back. There is one more cause of coral bleaching. There is one more cause of coral bleaching. Coral reefs turn white when people dump their trash. So litter in the ocean, just recycle. Have you ever heard of global warming? Have you ever heard of global warming? As much water gets into salt and pools can survive, you should do your part to keep our oceans cool.
So I learned a lot about coral reefs. Okay, one, the vocabulary was just off the charts by our students. And the thing about the coral reefs, they were very explicit in teaching me, because that was their job today in open house, was to teach whoever came to visit. And it was pretty darn amazing what our kids are capable of doing if we allow them to do it and expect them to do it. On the right picture there, that's where I was learning about coral reefs. And in the coral reefs, what I learned was about global warming, how it affects it, how my garbage affects coral reefs, how the heat and the temperature of the water. The kids were just able to truly conceptualize what it all is, and it was pretty amazing. And then we had another subset of students who didn't study coral reefs, but they studied wolves. And that was pretty amazing too. And I got to show my picture of my dog because he looks like a wolf, but he's not a wolf. And so the kids thought that was cool. But they all used technology. All kids use technology in the Summer Institute as a form of learning and accessing information to then craft their writing. We also had the little ones studying bats, and their vocabulary was with physical responses because some of those students were only in the country for 2 months. And what I did see was a student write a piece of binder paper in Spanish on the first day of summer school. And after 4 weeks, she wrote a full page on a piece of binder paper in English, using the vocabulary that she had learned specifically from her study of coral reefs. And that's amazing because it wasn't like copy, it was her writing. And so I think, what we are seeing is potential, and the doors are wide open if we just let our kids do this. So it was pretty amazing, and just a shout out to all the summer school teachers who were beyond excited and loved doing their work this summer. I wanted to let the board know that we had a team of teachers and Principal Moisage over at the Get Focused, Stay Focused conference, and River City High School won a gold award specifically at this conference and was recognized for the implementation of the Get Focused, Stay Focused curriculum. And that was our first year this past year where we required every 9th grade student to take this as a foundation for pathways and their studies for the entire high school career. So I have to mention in this Get Focused, Stay Focused, because you see a gentleman there that doesn't belong to us. And that gentleman there evidently was a gold medalist in beach volleyball at the Sydney Summer Olympics in 2000. He was the motivational speaker for Get Focused, Stay Focused. As one of the conference speakers. So thanks to our teachers and Principal Moisage for going out there, but really it was a good investment and we will continue to do that. Also wanted to let you know that students had gotten together with this Environmental Science and Energy Academy, and basically what they were doing is a project having to do with water runoff and recharge labs. So I'm going to have to read this because it's pretty technical. They were learning how to minimize water erosion and how to recharge aquifers, which is underground bodies of water where actually 50% of our drinking water comes from that in America. When you combine soil, compost, and mulch, there's the least amount of runoff and the greatest amount of recharge. So our students were engaged in that if they were in that academy. So I also attended this past week the Summer Institute for Leadership in our Avid program. So Avid, you see there, stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. And I am a firm believer of Avid. I really, really believe in Avid, and I'll tell you why. Because my niece is a testimony of what Avid can do. She graduated from Stanislaus State, the very first in her family. And that's what Avid did for her. She started that in 9th grade and stayed in the Avid program for 4 years to acquire the skills to go to college. Now, I also have another story that goes with Avid. When Avid was first started, Avid was really focused on students of first generation to go to college and also students of poverty. So when my son was in high school, he was in the IB program, and I hope my son's not watching this meeting, but he was in the IB program and did a great job in the first year, loved it. But then the second year, he got a little distracted and said, IB is not for me, and I would like to go to Avid. I said, well, let's go and talk to our counselors. Let's go and talk to the principal. So here I am trying to get my son into Avid to keep him focused, give him skill sets to go to college. And he was denied access. He was denied access to go to an Avid program, one, because he wasn't a student of poverty, and two, because his parents were working parents and college graduates. So when I think about that story, I know my son would have had a different path in college if he had Avid skills. So that to say, let's go to 2017 where we are today. And I learned a lot this week going to the Avid training. Avid is not only about students who have not, the families haven't gone to college. It is now representing that Avid is for all students. And it really brought me back to what is Avid for? Why is the district investing so much money in this year after year? Well, I am still a huge proponent for Avid, and let me tell you why. This is what I've learned. First of all, Avid is a system, it's not a program. So I'm going to stop saying that Avid is a program. Avid is a system, and so that helped me to learn as a superintendent, how do I create a stronger system to support our teachers teaching Avid, and also support our students to have better access to what Avid offers. Secondly, Avid still is about college readiness, and in our LCAP, it addresses goals 1 and 2, college readiness and also educational opportunities. The third thing that I learned is that all students now have access, and so it's a system where students can learn and acquire strategies. Lastly, students have access with success to rigorous instructional experiences. So it's just not a program where they get additional help. It's actually about, think of it as a tool belt for students where they acquire skills and they keep getting tools put into their tool belt so that when they go to college, they've learned all these skills because of the Avid strategies. So I learned a lot from that, and it's a different way of thinking. And now I can better support this in our district. One thing that I'm thinking, our teachers have a lot on their plate already. It's like, okay, how does this work? It's another thing. Well, what they taught me is to help lead that it's not another thing to do. When we talk about our plates being full, what they taught me was Avid is the plate. It's the plate. It's the foundation. And everything that we do goes with it, but Avid is a part of everything on that plate. So that was a good concept for me. There are 4 domains in Avid. So I think because we're investing so much in this program, it will help us all to see where our part is in Avid. 1, leadership is a domain. And they talked about all the way from the Board of Trustees, even to teacher coaches and mentoring our students. Leadership is in the teachers that teach it and the teachers who mentor our students through Avid. It also lies with the Board of Trustees in terms of you have put this into our LCAP and have invested over year after year and invested it for our students and our teachers. The second domain is about a system, so that really helped me to understand how do I help? And that is to make sure our system is grounded in instructional strategies to help them. It's just not about getting a class and an elective in place. It's about making sure the teachers have the tools and the supplies and the resources they need to help with the teaching of that. The third part of the domain is instruction. And in this system, we focus on instruction. In other words, the students, like summer school today, they didn't know they were doing Avid strategies, but it's about engaging our students into thinking, Socratic seminars, inquiry, and it's perfect for English learners, and there's even an English learner supplement to go with Avid. So it's really about engaging students in their learning. And lastly, the 4th domain is called culture, and the culture is not just about students. It's adult culture and student culture. Because if we can't get it school-wide where all of our students have access to these strategies about how to be good note takers, about how to think and how to question and inquire about concepts, inquire and question our teachers about how things are. If we don't give all of our kids access to that, then only a portion are getting it. So that goes with the adult culture, that we all have to do this, that it's all part of what we do every day. And then the student culture is about, I'm preparing to go to college. So they had all these college banners all over the place in the Avid training.
Linda, can I interrupt
Yeah,
for just
please.
a second? And I apologize, but has there been data, like through parents or students, surveys on if they know what Avid is? Because in the community, I have talked to students, and you get a different description of what Avid is. So I don't know that all students and all parents actually know what Avid is, and I don't know if we have any data on if they've ever taken surveys or if they know what's available to them.
You know, I don't know the answer to that. I've never seen a survey per se. There is data that is kept in the, when you're a member of Avid, when you invest in Avid, they do have a data system. And what we're asking and requesting, because I haven't seen it, is for them to run that so that we can really analyze that and see the outcomes of these years that the district has invested in this program and how we can improve that. In terms of our parents, I'm not sure that all of our parents know that that's there for them, because remember, there was an old model, and now we have to teach the new model that it's accessible for all kids, that you don't have to be a student that may be identified in poverty. It's accessible for all students. So we're going to have to do some teaching on that to our community, to our families, to let them know what this is about, especially that mentoring part is really, that's the special part of it, that a student has a mentor and student has an advisor to go to outside of counseling and outside of administration. So I think we should look at that this year. And that's why I wanted to start talking about the programs that we've been investing in. So in terms of how does it align to our goals, because we want to make sure it's not another thing, but it truly becomes the foundation of just good strategies for learning. So this is how it's aligned. One, it's about college readiness, which is our first LCAP goal. It's about core instruction, which is also in our LCAP, about making sure that all of our students have instruction in the standards, the core standards, and also we've invested as a district in all this new curriculum that is much more standards aligned. The third one there of academic support, there is academic support for students who may be struggling in their core classes, that Avid strategies really help them, and we can give them skills and tools to help them in their regular core classes. And then there's that mentoring part. There's more adults. Whenever there's more adults to help, whether it's an athletic coach or an Avid advisor or they're a counselor, the more mentors and adult support that our kids have, the more successful they can be. So just wanted to give a shout out. There were 58 staff members, and every school was represented at this Avid Conference from Washington Unified. Dr. Parsons and I went to the leadership training so that we know how to better support our schools in this Avid program. And I also want to give a shout out. Is Aaron Cormier here is our College and Career Readiness program specialist and Avid director. So she actually facilitated our afternoon workshop. And it wasn't just Washington Unified, it was other school districts that were there. And we were there to work on each school's goals and their actions and how it aligns to the district mission and vision. So she actually was one of the facilitators. So we've got some good things happening in Avid, and just wanted to thank all of our teachers for coming out, because the teacher training was 3 days. And Dr. Parsons and I went to the one-day leadership. So that's Avid, and you should hear more of it, because we're going to start looking at the data and making sure that our students really are making the gains and improvement through this system, not program. Lastly, I just wanted to let the board know that during the summer, what we're trying to do is make sure that when we start our school year, everything is aligned, that we know why we're doing things, like why do we have these goals? Why do we talk about LCAP? Why do we go through a strategic planning process? So what we are working on is to bring to the board how it's aligned so that you can do the final approval of the strategic plan, because many people worked on action steps. Here's how we can achieve our goals in the next 3 to 5 years. And we want to bring that to the board on how we're going to really meet these LCAP state priorities here in Washington Unified. So just a look at the strategic plan. We had 3 specific strategies or goals that action teams, teachers, classified staff, administration, parents. We had a community member on there that talked about how can we achieve these specific goals. And if you look at our LCAP goals, we have 5 that was just recently approved, and what we're doing is weaving strategic plan language straight into the LCAP, because the LCAP is what we're held accountable for. So we're working on that right now because we want it to be a 3 to 5 year plan. We want to be successful, and we want to show growth. So that's what we're working on this summer, and we hope to bring that to the board by the end of August. And that's my update for today. Any other questions? Or Great, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Exciting stuff. That was wonderful. I'm excited. And to piggyback on what you said, going back at the beginning with technology, since we do have technology in the room, one of the students today at summer school said to me that his favorite part of summer school, and I asked, was doing research on the Chromebook. And so he appreciated that. Okay. So that takes us to the consent agenda. As a reminder, M7 was changed, the approval of the contract services with Wallace Cool and Associates for the Riverbank roof repair. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the consent? Okay. Motion made by Board Vice President Pizzotti. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Board Trustee Cruz. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Thank you. Okay, so now we have information discussion items. We have a board discussion on after-school programs with Superintendent Linda Luna.
Thank you, President Kirby Gonzalez. Board trustees, there's been some requests made by parents in the community and some board trustees regarding our after-school programs. And at each of our schools, we do have after-school programs. Some of our schools have our federally funded program called the ACES program, and that's specifically designed to ensure that students who need additional help and who qualify under that are given priority to have after-school care or after-school program. And there's three components that go with that specific ACES program. So there is some accountability to that particular program. And it is not a fee for service. It is a federal grant that is awarded to assist and support students. We also have some after-school programs that are supported by our parent-teacher organizations at different school sites. One school in particular, they do world language or foreign language after school for like a 6-week period where parents can pay for service. In other words, if they want their child to take Spanish after school as part of an after-school program, to stay at school longer, maybe they can't get there, or they just want the enrichment, parents can pay a fee for service. The question really pertains to what about our young students with now in our economy, many of our parents are dual working parents, or many of our single parent families have a difficulty with after school care. So we looked specifically at one particular school, Bridgeway Island Elementary School, which is where we get the most feedback of parents needing childcare. So I did a little bit of research on, how are the facilities used at that particular program. It was also brought up at a 2x2 meeting in terms of what kind of facility can be used at the Bridgeway Island site because of the Bridgeway Island Park or something like that right behind the school. the question was would the city be interested in helping to put a portable back there that city programs could be run, but also an after-school daycare could be run for our students. So what I've done is I've reached out to the YMCA program. YMCA is the after-school care program for Bridgeway Island. They do not have the federally funded ACES program. So in the Bridgeway YMCA program, parents pay a fee for service. And they are generally focusing on kinder care because that's where the parents need it the most. Our kinder program is only a half day. So the cost is $290 in general for families to use the YMCA program at Bridgeway Island, $290 a month. And it does increase if kindergarten students are there in the beginning and go all the way until 6 o'clock in the evening. So the costs do increase. So what we looked at is at Bridgeway Island, is there room to address the wait list information that I received from YMCA? And their enrollment for next year is 42 students on the wait list. So what we looked at is it possible to expand the program? At Bridgeway, it is possible to expand the program by using a classroom after hours. It would be a fee for service, so families those on the wait list would have to pay for the service as the other parents do. I think I would like to put my hand in it a little bit more of making recommendations if we're going to have that kind of a program, that we have a little bit of say of how we want our students grouped for the best care and best instruction, the best kind of activities, the best kind of enrichment that is possible. We, as a district, are talking to YMCA about this possibility. So we wanted to let the board know that. I also will be very upfront with the board and the community that in working with YMCA, I am requesting to have them pay for some of the services that the district will have to put in. So whether they increase fees or whether the YMCA pays that, or whether we have to negotiate all of that, but I'll just be very upfront about that. I do think that we're expanding, and it's going to expand in the costs of our staff for cleanup and maintaining. So that's kind of where we are with that, and I think it's well worth looking also at the other schools. I just got word today that parents are wondering about TK because not all of our schools have TK, but some schools do. So TK is also the same amount of time as kindergarten. So what happens to our TK students when they're coming maybe from single parent homes and there's no one there for daycare for them? So I think it's becoming a bigger issue, a bigger concern in our community, because that's where we are in our economy and our time right now in 2017. So I'll leave that information with the board. If you'd like to discuss it more, maybe give me more direction, I'm happy to do and follow up accordingly.
Can I ask you a question? Because, Southport has a YMCA program that also has a wait list. Why was Bridgeway singled out, and why don't we take a district-wide kind of view of our after-school programs? Because I know also Westfield has a long wait list, and Stonegate, and a lot of ACES programs do. So I'm just curious as to, when we talk about equity in this LCFF era, that, this seems a little bit kind of against that kind of our philosophy of equity. Why would we only look at Bridgeway versus all of our schools that, from my understanding, have wait lists?
Yeah, I don't think that we're only going to look at Bridgeway. I think it was just the start, because that's where we get the most complaints in regards to this is our need. And whether that's a right decision or a wrong decision, it's where we get the most feedback, and that's where I started. We also lose a lot of families there to charter schools that offer free daycare. And so and those families that leave Bridgeway Island in kindergarten are now trying to get back in first grade, and they're not able to get in because we are full and impacted. And so, those are all family decisions, but at the same time, how does it impacting our district? I certainly am, as a true advocate and very passionate advocate about equity and access, this is not the only school that we would be looking at. It was a start because it did come up at different meetings.
Superintendent Luna, to your point, I've talked to several families that are not going to Bridgeway, they're Bridgeway families, and have instead chose Lighthouse because of the all-day after-school care programs. And 3 of those families have planned on coming back after kinder. And I had to tell them, we're impacted, you ain't gonna make it back. It's highly unlikely that you'll make it back. So they may end up staying at Lighthouse, which I would much rather have them come back to our school district or have them not leave in the first place. So if this is a factor in their decision-making process as to where they're going to go to school, I would like to try and help eliminate that. Most of our charter school families that would have gone to Bridgeway usually come from either Bridgeway, Stonegate, or Southport. So I'd like to look at those schools first because that's where we're losing our students that should be going to our schools. If we can eliminate this factor from their decision-making process.
But from an equity lens, if these parents are very involved, I would encourage them to look at other schools that may have space too. There's another argument to be made about your philosophy around equity and how we are marketing our schools generally. Is it just Bridgeway? And if you start looking across the board, and we've done really magnificent things across schools. You have Bridgeway and Southport parents going to Elkhorn for the Spanish immersion program.
Oh, dear.
So I think that that's another lens that you can actually start looking at. How do you actually keep our families here that aren't just further impacting the staff on Bridgeway Island? I just want to, again, when you talk about equity lens, it's not just one school. It's we have so many programs, so many great teachers, so many great staff across the district.
Absolutely.
That you should actually, if your concern is really about keeping parents, let's start thinking about what does that mean in terms of programming and marketing across.
Totally agree, but
Yeah.
They wouldn't have after school. Yeah, we have.
You still wouldn't have,
So I think one piece is we do need to look at every school, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we should not be looking at one school. I absolutely agree with you with equity. I think this is a school with about 800 kids and 24 slots of after school, which is why maybe we've heard a lot about it. But every school is important to look at. We should know every wait list and where, and this shouldn't be a barrier for families. And I know it is with TK. And I know families who've told me, I have one right now who would be near Westfield, who've told me that is their issue. And they may choose not to do TK simply because they are working and can't do pickup. And here's a really high-quality free program for them that they can't take advantage of. So I just think, to me, that this is sort of one of those no-brainer things that we should open the door and help with. If we have nonprofits willing to come in and help serve our kids, we, of course, should be charging the same rate that we would to any we have a rate for facility use for rooms that is very fair for nonprofits who are serving our students. So we should have that standard policy, no matter what school they're at or where they are, in terms of outside organizations serving our kids. For example, Firefly Art Program, Mad Science, all of those have the same requirement. I know ACES is different with the federal funds, but I think this is something we should look at as district-wide. I think that there's been a high need just because of the high number of kids, and there's not ACES plus something else, so it hasn't been able to absorb it, but yes.
I was going to say thank you so much on the equity issue. I think it's wonderful that Bridgeway is so vocal, the parents there, and I think it would maybe be on our part, perhaps we could send out a survey to some other parents, just to get an idea from the different schools, how many parents want this after-school care, or need it, I should say.
Need it.
I think that would be important. Some parents aren't going to be as vocal. I know within the Latino community, sometimes they're hesitant to ask or even to share that information. So it would be great if we could have a survey go out. I think that would be very helpful.
And I'll add that it is incredibly difficult for us to find out about schools' after-school programs. I went online and I was looking at some of the schools. I know we're going to revamp the way our schools do things, but for a parent that's not a member of our district who's coming in the first time, you're very vulnerable, you're nervous for your child, right? It's all new for you. And you go maybe to that website at first. How am I going to negotiate getting my child to school and figuring out, what to do with drop off and pick up? What time can I drop my child off? What are the options for after school care? And a lot of our sites, they don't even have it. I mean, I was looking through thinking, what are the options at this school site? So as we revamp our site websites, that's the number one kind of, to me, simple thing. We already have an after school program. What is the link to even get there? Because it's not easy to find as a family that's coming in brand new, and they're looking at many times right now over the summer when the school's closed. You can't pick up the phone and call and ask. So I think that we need to be easier with that. And then also something and we've been talking about this, by the way, for since the day I came on the board. I mean, it's been a long process, and I'm glad that finally something might be happening with it, because it's been frustrating, to be honest. And we knew we were losing families, and many of them we knew why. And so one very simple thing I would encourage principals to do is if they could even survey, what are the options that people use for after school?
Yeah.
Is there an after school pickup? And it's not that we're endorsing them, maybe. There's a liability, I'm sure, there. But even just having a list of, here are some of the things that parents do. And so you have a starting point to know. It reminds me of Up for West Sac, when we had kind of here are the approved preschools, because this is a barrier for, I think, families at every single site.
And we talk about YMCA, and, they have YMCA downtown. They actually have programs, they actually have a building. And nothing, I never hear us talk about a program, to me, that I think that would be just great for our whole community, and that's the Boys and Girls Club. They have, there's one downtown, and I don't know, if we've ever reached out to them about bringing a program here, but they have programs, and they can house many, many kids. So maybe that's something we need to start that conversation with them, because they're downtown.
Do they do on-school site
They
stuff?
do.
They do?
I used to work closely with the Boys and Girls Club. They were my after-school care provider.
Okay.
And we would work with them in aligning homework, because they were in our backyard when I was a principal. And so teachers would be able to talk to them and say, hey, in fourth grade, this is what we're working on, if you can help with that. We used to give them books so that they could, because there's components to the after-school programs that Boys and Girls Club does. We used to share facilities. We used to go use their gym, and they would come over and do activities with our kids. So I'm happy to reach out to Boys and Girls Club or have staff do that to see what the possibilities are. I think, what I would like to do, and I as nothing goes without saying, I just have to say this. I think when the board hired me, you saw one thing that I think is a little bit different, and that is I'm very, very passionate and a huge advocate on equity and access. And that's how I grew up, and that's what I stand for, and that's why I'm here in Washington Unified. So I want to make sure that that's very clear, that I'm bringing this report not as an opposite message to that. That is exactly what I stand for, and I want to make sure that's very clear. I think what's important is that we bring a full comprehensive report to the board. Here's what every school has for after-school care. We've talked about ACEs, but that's a little bit different, because some of the PTOs do provide other kinds of activities that parents have access to. And who's to say that if I'm a Westmore Oaks family and I want my student to have Spanish after school and it's offered at Southport, why can't my kid go there? So I'm probably opening up a can of worms. I don't mean to, but I'm just saying, if we're talking about, how to take care of our families, how to allow kids to have access to enrichment of learning and other kinds of activities that are on our school campuses, then let's really look at a comprehensive approach to this and find out, one, what is the need, two, what's in place, And then 3, does that match with what we believe for equity and access? And then how can we lead it that way? So that's what I would recommend that we do.
Linda, I have just a real quick question. When they talk about after-school care, what time would be the cutoff when parents would have to pick up their children?
People
are
in
they
general at our school sites, it's 2:30 to 6 o'clock for the ACES program. For YMCA, it's also 2:30 to 6. There are some after-school classes that are only like an hour or something like that. So it just really depends. I think that's why, I think maybe the board, in your best interest, is to see each school, what is offered after school and the times, and how many kids go to that. And they're paying for it, it's after school. And so how does that work in terms of access for other kids who may not be able to participate? So,
Thank you.
does that make sense? Yeah.
Do you know how many school sites, is it 2 that YMCA has? Is it Southport and Bridgeway?
I'm aware for sure it's Southport and Bridgeway.
What does Stonegate have, do you know?
I mean, no, Stonegate has YMCA
So,
also.
okay, so what does Southport has?
YMCA.
YMCA, so there's 3.
So there's 3. And then there's the rec center program, is that,
The rec center helps with the ACES program.
oh, with the ACES program, okay, so they staff, the Parks and Rec Department
that
I
staff.
believe
Is
so.
that the same as Kid Zone, ACES?
Kids Zone, yeah.
Well, Stonegate, I believe, has Kids Zone, not YMCA.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay, so that's a different program.
Yeah.
So there's only 2 programs in which YMCA is actually a
It
part
sounds
of.
like it, because it's a
Yeah.
fee for service.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So there's only 2 programs with that.
And both have wait lists.
Both have monumental wait list, from what I understand. So when would we hear back from you on this?
Well, I had a hard time even getting this information.
Right.
Only because I just happened to catch an administrator at Bridgeway, and I walked the campus and, asked their opinion about how could this expand and how would it impact your campus. Right now, everybody's on vacation, off work right now. So we will do our best on the end of just getting some basic knowledge of what kind of programs are at the school sites, but we definitely need the principals. Because the PTO part is
Right.
where we don't know that in the district office. The PTO part is only at the school site itself. So that's where we'll need the principal input on that.
So for the YMCA part, would that portion be doable by the beginning of this school year?
Depends how we negotiate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the others,
That needs to be known, so we'll have to figure that
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise,
then the other portions of the overall grand scheme, those don't sound like they would be doable for this year, or at least the beginning part of this year.
Because the research has only been done on one campus.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear that the research has only been done on one campus and not the rest.
Right. So, yes, we'll have to get all of that together. In terms of the YMCA, I'm waiting for a response back from them.
I want to hit on your recommendation in terms of a district-wide plan, and I'm assuming staff will just need time to kind of research that.
Yeah, yes, because
Okay.
not everybody's
Yeah,
here.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure like when that will happen, but, so I'm hearing that it will happen, and the same level of research will happen for Bridgeway and for everybody else.
Well, YMCA is different for Bridgeway and
Right.
Southport because they're a separate entity.
Right.
Whereas, and there's some other memorandums of understandings from the past that go with YMCA that have to do with the city, with the school district and YMCA. So there's a lot of studying to go with that in terms of the use of the facilities and the fees. In terms of the other programs, those are just different programs.
Yeah.
And we can get more information on those, but the PTO programs is what I can't get information on until everybody comes back. So I'm just going to keep working along of whatever I can get done and whatever staff can get done at the same, through this summer.
Are there plans to centralize it? I guess that's my, actually very
No.
clear. Okay, I just want, because it kind of
No.
sounded that way.
We are
so
not
I just wanted to clarify.
I'm
It just
only
sounded
doing
that
this
way.
as a response of
a board
I put the
of
request in back in
inquiry
May.
and request of information. We are not centralizing.
All right, because it sounded a little bit of that way, okay.
It's just that I am getting the
Gotcha.
information for the board.
I guess I don't understand the piece about why it's difficult for facilities, because they already are using one room at both sites. So couldn't it just be whatever that is doubled? I mean, whatever the facility, whatever garbage, don't we have a standard rate for that? I guess I'm not understanding what the negotiation is.
There's a memorandum of understanding
Yeah.
that was written in 2003. And so I can update the board a little bit more on that as I learn more from the city and the YMCA and how the triangle of the partnership works.
Okay, so maybe the rates have increased for electrical and custodial, that's the piece?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
And paying the fees, yes.
yeah, okay. Okay.
So do you know at the other school sites, if we were to expand programs there, is space a barrier? Like, I know Bridgeway, space was a barrier. That's one of the reasons why we had a difficult time locating where we would put in a new spot, and why we wanted to have a conversation with the city about putting in a portable.
Right.
Is that a barrier at other locations as well?
It is, especially like at Stonegate. There is absolutely no room at Stonegate. So what we're looking at is the use of our facilities after school is out. So when I was a principal, we had lots of organizations servicing students under what we called the SES program. It was a federal program where we were required to do certain things of after-school intervention. And we had to use classrooms for our students to have those specific programs. So that's, at this point, that's pretty much where we are at all of our schools in terms of what's available. And that's why it's a little bit more maneuvering because of the facilities issue of using classrooms after school.
Yeah.
Where will our teachers work if they're working there and things like that.
So since we're not centralizing this, so I'm just wondering why, because, at Southport, it is our site administrator and our PTO who work together to try to figure this out. I'm very cognizant of district resources and time in investigating this. Is this something that moving forward, that model, and it seems like at every single campus, that's kind of the model that the administrator and PTOs do this. And so, your time is very precious to us, given the LCAP and everything else. So wondering if, are you possibly handing it off to to kind of replicate the models across the other school sites? Or since we don't have a plan to centralize after-school programming?
Yeah, we're not going to centralize. What I'm going to do is a needs assessment so that the information can come to the board. I can't get that information if our principals aren't working, and they're not working right now.
No, in terms
Yeah.
of kind of the Bridgeway specifically, right? So because all of our after-school programs are run by site administration and the PTO.
Yes, yes.
And we don't have no plans of centralizing it. So once you
No.
do this research for Bridgeway, are you handing it off to kind of replicate the same model? Are you saying that the district uniquely
It will be
is
the
involved here?
principals.
Okay.
It will be the principals, yeah. Yeah, it will be the principals.
So you'll hand this research off
I'm just
to-
helping them right now because they're not working.
Yeah, so you're helping Bridgeway specifically.
Yeah, every principal will be responsible for it directly, yes.
Okay, so I guess to be determined when families would even be
It
notified.
will definitely give the board updates, yeah. And it
Okay.
can be in writing, it could be a board.
Okay, do you
board
anticipate that by the school year that families might be able to be served in the second classroom?
It really depends on YMCA
Okay,
and what they're going to agree to work with the district on.
and that would need to have board approval, that MOU?
I would recommend that, yes.
So then it might possibly be that we could have an MOU. I'm just thinking about timing,
Starts at
school
16.
starts, that it would have to be August 10th. if it was the work for school.
If we can get the response, yes.
Okay. All right.
Hope
Okay.
to hear back from you on August 10th.
Thinking about all of our working
Scott.
parents and, yeah.
Yeah. We will do our best in just getting
Okay.
as much information to the board as possible with, it's like 3 lanes, basically.
I know, I understand.
One
It's a lot
is
of
the
work. I
fee for
understand.
service of YMCA, one is the ACES program, one is the PTO at all the different school sites. And so that's what we'll do all at the same time. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay. So that takes us to the facility update, N2, on summer projects, and we have Assistant Superintendent Scott Landsberger.
Good evening, Board President Kirby Gonzalez, members of the board. Real quick, going to step in here for Mr. Sanders, who's not able to be with us tonight, give you a very quick update on facility projects that we're working on this summer. They're listed there. I'm going to go through them really quick, give you some pictures so you can see some of the conditions that we've dealt with. And we've talked a little bit in the past about having to make sure that we take care of our building envelope, and you're going to see what happens when building envelope isn't addressed as quickly as it should be, specifically the Westmore Oaks campus. But you have 2 major roofing projects going on right now. One's at Westfield, one's at Westmore Oaks. So these are some pictures of Westfield Village prior to construction, and you can see how water would pool on the roof of this building because it's so old it wasn't sloping right, and it would have impressions in the roof, and so water would continue to sit there and pool and continue to deteriorate the roof. Other conditions at Westfield, the picture on the right shows dry rot. You see the piece of wood that's painted green, it's actually rotting out, and those fascias are being taken out, and some rotting of pipes as well. Westmore Oaks, you'll see that the coating has gotten so thin in the gravel coating that it's where the areas where it looks it's smooth, water sits, and it creates, again, puddles, and that's creating some of the other conditions that we see at Westmore Oaks, which is, again, here's a couple more pictures of sitting water. But you'll see that the sitting water always will turn into the start of membranes that buckle. Westfield Village is getting a single ply coat and a couple of tar buildups. A lot of tar buildup is happening at Westmore Oaks. So here's some of the roof replacements that were taking place at Westfield Village. And here's Westmore Oaks. And what you're seeing at Westmore Oaks, we've been very fortunate. Since I've been here and we started doing roofing projects, we always put a contingency in for dry rot. And it was very rarely used. We'd use a little bit of it, like, awesome, not a lot of dry rot. That's not the case at Westmore Oaks. We're already into $40,000 worth of dry rot for Westmore Oaks. They're about half, 3/4 of the way done, tearing things off to the point where we'll see dry rot. We found a little bit more, but these are areas of dry rot in the, I believe this is in the covered walkway at Westmore Oaks. So it's the walkway that went down the corridor in between the buildings. And you'll see in some of these pictures, it's extensive. This is where building Q abuts up to the walkway. Some pictures of the underneath side of the walkway and where the piping is rotting through. And again, the middle picture really says it all. As they started peeling parts of it off, it left holes. It was just waiting to come apart. So Westmore Oaks is a case study in why we have to take care of the building envelope and really stay on top of it and move quickly with roofing projects when they come up. The good news is they are just doing a phenomenal job. I had a meeting with the contractor today, and for both Westfield and Westmore Oaks, I'm going to get the terminology wrong, but the hot tar buckets that they use for the build-up roofs, they say will be completely off the sites by August 4th. So that last week between August 4th and the 11th, just before staff comes back, or the teachers sometimes come back that week, they're going to be doing fit and finish. They're going to be doing some painting things and some touch-up things. But the major construction components of the roofing projects will be done by August 4th.
Is that whole school being repainted, or just what's being repainted?
When they do these, and there's well, not at Westmore Oaks, but at Westfield, there's a mechanical system project. But when they go and they redo the roof, they are painting gas lines yellow They are tying up some things where curbing, and they have some minor painting and touch-up and stretching to do on the tops of the roofs. But they have their fit and finish parts. They don't just come in, lay a roof and go away. They go back through and they have to complete the process. Some of these roofs are that membrane material, so they go back in and verify their work after they've stretched and laid the roof out. So the other major project you have going on right now is your Prop 39 HVAC upgrades that are happening at the Middle College High School and Westfield. A total of 42 units are being replaced, and those units are going to be lifted via helicopter on the 21st, a week from tomorrow. A letter went out to affected communities so that they would not be worried when there was a helicopter flying about 50 feet off the ground around their house, because they're going to be that low. They're actually going to lift them. They're staging. They already turned the mechanical systems off at these two sites. And beginning next week, they're going to bring the mechanical units in, stage them on the sites, finish their disconnects, and the helicopter will literally come over, pull one off of the building, drop it, pick one up, put it on, and do that 40 times in between the two sites. It's all gone through the FAA and the city and all the permitting, so they've dotted their I's and crossed their T's very well. And I personally am going to go out and take some pictures. They said I cannot fly the helicopter. I'd like to try, but they told me that I had to stay away. So these are just a couple diagrams to show you specifically at the charter school the mechanical units that are being replaced. This is another really good example when you look at Westfield of how we took other people's money and some of our money and tied them together to do a complete project. So we did the roofs and the mechanical systems at Westfield. The roof money comes from Measure V. The mechanical system Prop 39 money is coming from the state. So we combined the two together and did a comprehensive project. So we try and do that as often as we possibly can. And then some other projects that are going on. We put in a couple digital marquees, and I know they're not necessarily everybody's favorite, but boy, the principals love them. And every time we put one in, we have a principal going, "Where's mine?" And so this year there are 3 of them going in. There's one going in at Southport. This is a single-sided marquee, so it's only seen from one side, so it's going to be near the, pardon me?
It's there already, I think.
They actually put the marquee in the ground? Yeah, these things, they're moving fast.
They are.
So single-sided marquee, so as you're driving down Linden, you'll see it if you're going west. Elkhorn, when we were looking for the site for Elkhorn, this is going to again this will be a double-sided marquee, so you can see it from either direction that you're coming up to the school site.
So to clarify, it's not, you have the picture of the original, but it's not going to be in that area then if it's double-sided?
No, it's going to be closer to the street. These guys are trenching for the conduit that's going to go to it, so when the principal's in their office typing in their message, we had an option of these being wireless, and we said, no way.
Oh.
We wanted them to be hardwired back to a computer so that it couldn't be intercepted as easily by somebody through.
Hacked.
Yes, so they all go back to a principal's office. So no, the one for Elkhorn is going in that front grass area, and it's going much closer to the street, so as you're driving down the road, you can see it from either direction. The nice thing about the company that we're working with, Ellis Signs, we've done several of these with them now. So you'll notice for Southport's marquee, they have their logo for their duck is on either side. For for Elkhorn, they have their tiger. And for Westfield, they have their paws.
And so the funding for the marquees, is that from
Measure V.
That's from Measure V?
Yep. All of them have been, except for Riverbank, which was done from funding when we did, Riverbank was done before Measure V.
I'll keep my comments. I just don't see how that was a higher necessity than repairing buildings and things to have a marquee at each school.
It's a part and piece of a lot of the work that we're doing, and I think at one point when you look at some of the work that's done on some of the school sites, nobody sees it. And so as we're going through the program, we wanted to make sure that there was something visible at every school site that somebody could see, because people do not see the roofs. People don't see horizontal cabling. People don't see, irrigation lines. They don't see some of the gate work that's being done because there was a gate there already. They see a different door and they don't understand the security component that you put on a gate. So part of this was to create a visual and a front-facing curb appeal to the program, because with the exception of me bringing pictures to a board meeting, no one's going to see what the Westmorex roofs look like. That's a $2 million
Well,
project.
my concern is we went to the community and the voters asking for money for repairs and certain things, and now to have to explain that we use Measure V monies for these marquees all over when there needs to be repairs, as long as we're able to continue to spend the money to repair what we promised the people that approved the bond. That's just my concern. I don't know that we approved marquees, maybe we did. I don't know when that was brought as part of the Measure V plan, but you can refresh my memory.
I will go back in the process and get it for you. Just for a dollar perspective, out of almost a $50 million bond, this is about $400,000. So it's a really small amount when you look at the program compared to other things that we're doing. These are smaller dollars.
And I understand it's smaller dollars, but if it comes down to the end and we don't have $400,000 to fix dry rot or fix something else,
Sure.
then how do we explain it? But we have marquees. So that's just my concern. I mean, I know we try to stretch a dollar as much as we can.
We do. And again, as we've talked before, with the $50 million that we got, that's not even going to cover 25% of the need. It's a $230 million need. So we're going to have to continue to work on it and maximize money and try and get other parts and pieces to get the entire program done. And by the time we get done with the entire program, there'll be a whole new set of issues that we'll need to be addressing on the facility. It's constant. It's just like your house. You put on the roof, and now it's going to be, the hot water heater and this and that go out, and then the air conditioner goes out, and it's a cycle.
Just
So-
being transparent.
I appreciate the conversation. So another project that we hadn't talked to you guys about that we're going to split into two parts is, Dr. Parsons had talked about bringing science classrooms to the Yellow campus. And as we went there, and here's another one of our older campuses, and when you pull back the layers, you find interesting things. And DSA went, the entire concrete walkway that you see in red line does not meet grade for cross slope, and it all has to be replaced. We said, okay, we'll go and do the project, but we knew we weren't going to be able to do the concrete and the classrooms before school started. So you actually approved the contract on consent tonight with BRCO Construction to do this concrete work, and they will be starting tomorrow with their equipment drops off, and they have a schedule that shows them being done August 4th as well. So the yellow project's going to be in two phases. Phase 1 is going to be this concrete work, and phase 2, which will happen next summer, will be the actual conversion of the classrooms to full science labs like you have at Bright and or River City.
Aren't some of these, I'm trying to, this is a small picture, but aren't, these pathways are being used right now. Were these not evaluated when we did phase 1?
The pathways for YOLO?
Oh, never mind. Okay, I'm sorry. I see okay. Scratch that.
Okay.
I was looking at bright faced. No wonder I was so confused on this drawing.
Nope, this is, I haven't got to Bright yet.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
A couple projects that we started and have already wrapped up. As you recall, you have a community day school program, Cesar Chavez, that is on the district office campus. And it was within one of the wings of office space. And it created some challenges. And so we decided that this summer we are going to take a portable, put it out in the same row where you have the TAL portable, and there's another portable, room 75, right there on Evergreen, and turn it into a classroom specifically for Cesar Chavez, so it's not within the office space because of the relationship in between the program and an administrative office. So that portable is in punch-out. It's absolutely beautiful. They installed a bathroom, so it's got its own single-use bathroom on the inside. It's a gated area that has some asphalt on the outside that have place to move around, and they still have access to the basketball courts that are on the backside of the district office. So lot of place for that particular program to still be able to stretch their legs, but it puts them in a space that allows us then to recapture that wing for the district office to use for administrative services. And Bright Phase 2, which we'll talk about a little bit more, is wrapping up the schematic design. We're going to start going into construction documents and moving things forward based on some of the things we show you tonight and feedback that we get from the board. And ATI will give you the schematic design phase, and we've got a fly-through, but it's actually part of the next presentation that Dr. Parsons is going to provide. So a recap of the facilities summer projects is the Westfield Village and Westmore Oaks roofs. $2.7 million is where we're at right now for that project. The HVAC upgrades are at $857,000. The marquees for the 3 sites are $155,000. The concrete contract is at $242,000. Cesar Chavez, that portable, costs $131,000 to update. And as we go through the schematic design phase, we're at about $574,000 in fees.
After this roofing project, are we complete with the roofs for our school sites, or do we still have sites that are in need?
We still have some needs. We have, there's parts of Riverbank that have to do with covered walkways that still have some issues. We need to replace the gutters at South Stonegate and Bridgeway Island. We were not able to get those off the ground in time to be able to complete them over the summer, so that's something that's going to be looked at as a summer project for next year. Southport has a couple of issues, but it's one of the newer schools, so it doesn't need a full roof replacement. And I'd have to go back and pull, because we actually have a 20-year roofing plan, and as we start cycling through, believe it or not, River City is going to hit a cycle where it's going to need maintenance, because River City is coming up on what is 10-year-old campus. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to hit that point where we have to do some maintenance on that site. So the roofing program, as far as doing major projects like this, is wrapping up. Now we're into some maintenance cycles, and then we'll hit major roofing projects again.
Great. And who has control over the air conditioning? Does the classroom have control, or do you have control? How does that work?
The classroom has a control to change the temperature in the room by about 2 degrees. By setting there's a thermostat that has a minor adjustment on it. The rest of the control of temperature in a classroom is done through a computerized management system, an EMS. And we have a set point. I have to go back because the board adopted, as part of their green policy, a set point for air conditioning and heat. I just can't not remember them off the top of my head.
Does it have the capacity ever to change, like a classroom that they're setting? They can still do the 2%, but theirs is at a different place, or do they all have to be standard? Does that make sense to you? So if one room is saying,
Yep.
you know, I really feel like this room does get hotter for whatever reason, it doesn't work the same, could you control that individually or no?
You could, but the answer is you could. Right now, I believe if the standard is, and don't quote me on the temperature, but if it says air conditioning is going to be 76 degrees, they're set at 76 degrees with a 2-degree variance across the board. And then if somebody says, I don't feel this room is functioning right, because the problem we have, especially in the summer, when it's really hot, is people will say in the middle of the day the heater is on, and the heater's not on. The air conditioner got the room down to the set point, the air conditioner turned off, but code requires that the fan is cycling the whole time and bringing in outside air. So when it's 105 degrees outside and 76 degrees inside the classroom, and it's pulling in fresh air, it feels like the heater is on. Temperature goes up, air conditioner comes back on again, it gets bounced, it feels good for a little bit, and then it feels like the heater is coming back on. We can, when that's happening, if somebody lets us know, they can go out and try and work on the damper a little bit so that as that exchange of air is coming through, it's not as such a hot rush. But when you have a variance in temperature between inside and outside air of 30 degrees, when we had that, those 100-degree days, it will feel like the heater is on when that air conditioner cycles off because the room hit the set point.
Okay. I think that's just, it's hard to learn when you don't have a comfortable room, and so. Okay,
totally
thank you for
understand. I think the
explaining.
worst thing they did was mandate that fan has to be on the whole time, because I don't think anybody thought about it, because it happens in the winter too. The heat's on, it feels nice, and then that heater turns off because it hit the set point, and it's pulling it outside air, and it's 55, 60 degrees outside. It feels like the air conditioner's on, and it's not.
Maybe our legislative committee can look at that. All right, thank you.
Scott, I do have a question. How much additional money did we get from Prop 39? Just ballpark.
1.4 million, I believe.
Okay.
Is it 1.4? I'm probably going to be off a little bit, and then we have some money for the charter school as well. So this HVAC upgrade, the 857, is not all coming out of the Washington Unified Fund 40. Prop 39, some of it's going to come out of a resource in Fund 9, because some of the money is for the charter school to pay for their share of the project. They didn't have enough money to do the whole thing, but it didn't make any sense to only do part of it, especially since the facility fell back to being under district control. We went, take care, because these are some of the worst mechanical systems in the district.
Thank you.
I think that was it for that presentation. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, that takes us to N3, board discussion of Bright Phase 2, the 21st Century Collaborative Design. Dr. Andy Parsons, Assistant Superintendent.
Good evening, President Kirby Gonzalez, Board of Trustees and Cabinet and public. The purpose of tonight is to present and receive board direction on Bright Phase 2. So you know where we are coming. As Mr. Landsberger said, we're completing the schematic stage, and so now we'd like to bring it to the board to discuss what the process has been during the 16-17 school year, and where to go from here. We had a Bright Phase 2 committee. The committee was Mr. Landsberger, myself, the Director of Facilities, the Director of Technology, Director of College and Career Readiness, the principal at River City, and Mr. Goldsworthy, ATI Architects, who will be addressing the board in a moment. So we had a very collaborative group that met once every month, and then in the past 4 or 5 months, we've met twice a month. So my primary role in that committee was to communicate to the architects and to our directors, the will of the board, on our career pathways and what would be best suited as we build Bright Phase 2. I would like just to review with the board that Bright Phase 2 consists of 2 separate wings, the 2 remaining wings on Bright Campus, as well as the area that's almost adjacent to the entry into Bright that has been used by NCCT in the past. That will be transformed into the adult ed office, as well as a counselor will be there, and we're hoping to create a GED testing lab in order to support our community in actually taking the GED, because at the present time we can support them in the studying and the classwork, but then they have to go over to Woodland to actually take the GED test. So we would like to get certified by ETS in order to be able to give that test. So with that said, one of the primary things that we wanted to start doing is looking at 21st century collaborative design. And what that means as far as a learning space is we wanted to create a learning space that is flexible, not only for kids and teachers, but also for career pathways, because this is it's a very significant building project, and we want to make sure that we have the flexibility as work trends change and are modified, that we're able to accommodate that. Secondly, it needs to be a collaborative space. It needs to have furniture that can be moved around so kids can work in groups, they can work separately. As well, we need to have opportunities for creative expression. That includes technology integration, project-based learning, and things of that nature, which has to do with hands-on learning. And probably most importantly, when we're dealing with a 21st century collaborative learning space, is that the teacher becomes a facilitator more than the sage on the stage kind of a concept. And during the process, we also received a lot of input from our current science teachers as to looking at the labs, what works, what doesn't work, when we were looking at River City High School labs. So we got a wide array of input from our teachers as well. So going into the culinary, going into the college to career pathways, what was really important, as I said, and as the board has communicated to us, is to make sure that we can strengthen our current pathways as well as expand into other pathways. And so, for example, culinary and hospitality, agriculture, health occupations, actually that's done twice on this slide, a dry science lab, a wet science lab, core academics. We need a place, as we've discussed with fuel ed and blended learning, that it's important to be able to offer core academics over at Bright so that students over at River City who are taking higher level math courses, science courses, English, etc., that we're able to offer that over at Bright as well. 21st century collaborative design, architecture and engineering, manufacturing, design and construction, and of course health occupations. And I would like to note for the board that we're using the industry sector on this. So when I say health occupations, we currently have medical technologies up at the school and biomed. This also includes nursing, so I know that's very important to the board. And so that is incorporated in that. Okay. It's just we're calling it health occupations. Okay, so, and actually we're very excited about doing that because on the one hand you have a very robust program and extremely popular up at the high school. It's articulated into four-year universities, but it's also important to have nursing as the board requested in order to do articulation efforts with our community colleges. So students can go and get certificates at the community college.
Andy, when the phase 2 is done, do we know how many students can be housed on that campus? Or your anticipation of how many students can be housed at that?
That's a great question. I can get more accurate numbers for you, but one thing that we're looking at is how many kids we currently have there, because we actually have a lot of room over at Bright, and we are not utilizing all the space right now. And the primary reason for that actually has to do with core academics not being there, as well as we need to promote, and Principal Munches knows this, that we need to be promoting our college to career much more robustly. And that deals with master scheduling and things of that nature. But I can get a capacity for you as I talk with the architects to see exactly what the capacity is going to be.
Well, because you're talking about putting the core classes, which I think is absolutely great. So you're basically, are you looking at students being on that campus versus River City full-time? So if you have an engineering academy student or any of the pathways, are they going to be at Bright campus full-time, or are they still going to be going back and forth?
It will depend on the master schedule and how well they align with the 4x4. But one of the things with the core classes, we're not talking about having 5 or 6 core classrooms, okay? We're doing blended learning so that we can do multiple levels, multiple topics within the core classroom. Okay, so that's really important. And we're still working out the details with the high school on how many kids will be actually transported down versus working with the master schedule to make sure they have their core, for example, in the afternoon, and do their career courses in the morning.
Okay.
Then I have a quick question. I like the idea of health occupations. I feel like it's not as narrowed as nursing, because I think about, physical therapists, doctors, and nurses. And so I imagine then this is, when we're talking to the community, this is a pathway that would be good for any of those people going into the health field?
Absolutely. I'm not sure if you were here a second ago, that I'm using the terminology of the state for our industry sectors.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Health occupations, oh, absolutely, nursing, physical therapy, and things of that nature. And one of the important things, and we all know what the trends are in our region at this point, but we also want to make sure that we have student need. And so, like I told Stan and Renee, is, you're gonna have to promote, and we will run what the students need, what they want to take. And so that's one of the things, because if you get the more different, the increased pathways that you have, it starts minimizing its effectiveness, because you have just so many kids. And so right now, for example, biomed up at the high school is extremely popular. If we added a couple more pathways up there, it may not be as popular, because I go, oh, maybe I'll take this. Do you know what I mean? So we really want to try to focus our pathways, but the health occupations is definitely a regional and state and national trend at all levels. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that that is part of the design, as the architects will explain in a moment.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any questions programmatically for the Educational Services Department before I turn it over to Mr. Goldsworthy?
Well, I've asked on 2 separate occasions now if I can get the number of culinary students that actually passed the state program. I asked at a board meeting, and I didn't get that information. More recently, maybe 2 weeks ago, I asked in an email via another assistant soup that was going to forward that information to you. So the culinary students took state tests, and I wanted to know the number, how many took the test and how many actually passed, and I never received that information.
And I apologize, because I have that information in my office, and I thought it was communicated. So I will get that to you. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to introduce Mr. Goldsworthy, who's part of ATI Architects, and then if you have any further questions of me, I'll be right here. I won't go far.
Good evening. I'm Michael Goldsworthy from ATI Architects and Engineers, and I'd like to take a few moments and walk you through our schematic design phase of the project that we just completed, and we're starting into the design development. We're using the new CAD Rivet program on this, so it's both a dynamic and a three-dimensional model that we prepare our drawings with now. And also what's kind of nice about it is like I said, it is a schematic design level, but we're able to do walkthroughs and fly-throughs as we develop our construction documents. So these are all pretty basic now as we develop it into design development and construction drawings. The drawings become much more complicated and much more detailed. So these are rather simple because they are schematic design. So let's just get into that right now. Talk about budget first. The budget we were given was $7 million. We have soft costs of approximately $1.13 million of soft cost, which includes a healthy contingency. The construction budget is, with the soft costs removed, is $5,865,420. Upon completion of our schematic design phase, we engaged a professional cost estimator, third party, to prepare a detailed cost estimate, about 35 pages long, and we came up with a schematic design estimated cost of $5,817,323, which is basically under the budget. And that includes a 15% construction contingency at this point. So we feel very comfortable that the budget we have with the program that we develop is going to work. Schedule, we're going to be hopefully completed with DSA sometime in mid-December. DSA just came out with a new program, which we selected the state before they came out, where they now, if you're familiar with DSA, they have a bend time. Well, they don't have bend time anymore. I make an appointment sometime in the future, and that's the day I have to submit. If I don't make it that day, we got to make another appointment, which might be months ago. So we're going to revisit that, but we're confident that DSA can be completed sometime mid-December. With the bidding, vetting of the biddings, the board review and approval and mobilization, we can see construction starting sometime in March of 2018.
What all is included in the soft costs?
Soft costs includes testing, inspection, architectural fees, engineering fees,
Permits?
IT, furniture, and that kind of stuff like that. It also includes the contingency costs and there's other miscellaneous costs in there that we like to, for example, a very simple cost, but maybe a fire hydrant test for the fire sprinklers, that kind of thing.
How much of a contingency are you saving for this?
Pardon me?
How much of a contingency are you saving for this project?
Right now, the schematic design estimate, we include 15% contingency of the total cost is in there. As we work towards the design development, we'll prepare another professional estimate at the end of design development, and that the contingency usually then drops down a little bit, but we never go below 10% for construction contingency. It's important to keep that because we are working with a school that's built in the 40s, so we don't know what's underneath that stucco, and we don't know what's underneath that wood. So we are going to be taking the buildings down to raw studs and replacing all of the utilities and all of the infrastructure within the project. So just very similar to phase one that was done. So we're going to start construction sometime in March, and then construction completed sometime in June of, that doesn't look right, that's June of 19 it's supposed to be. Sorry about that. I just got that. I've been looking at it for about 3 weeks. Here's a site plan. If you're not familiar with the campus, the three wings are the ones at the very top. There's two wings we're going to do, and then the building that Andy was talking about, where we have our general ed and our testing, is the small building off to the right. It was originally the kindergarten at the school, then it became, I think, a computer lab now, and now it's going to turn into the general ed, and that's that little box right to the left there on the street. So we're going to be replacing, again, like YOLO, we're going to have to replace all the hardscape, all the walkways, because they don't meet the ADA standards of the city, of the state codes. We'll be redoing all the bathrooms to meet up to the state codes, and again, all the finishes and materials, all that will be replaced. Here's a bird's eye looking northeast of the campus. The building that we were talking about for the general ed is on the far left, and then the two wings are in the middle there. You can distinguish them with the air conditioning unit sitting on the roof versus the culinary building, which is just to the lower part of the building, and the multipurpose building there in the front. Here's another bird's eye looking northwest. Again, the three buildings, and another view looking southeast. So those are taken from the plans. Our Rivet programs allows us with just a few manipulations to come up with 3Ds, and we can actually rotate and move these. These are more static. But where we're going to move now is into the plan, as Andy went through the program. And you can see on the large scale drawing here that the various programs that we're developing are labeled above the classrooms as we work what I call building one at the bottom. Starting from the right, we have the wet lab, the equipment storage for the wet lab, the dry lab in the middle, and then the culinary and hospitality classroom on the far left. Moving up, what we call building two. Starting on the right, we have health occupations, we have manufacturing at the next room, and we have architecture and engineering, the third room, and then the fourth room are your core teaching. All of the, and then of course the far left is the education adult office and testing. All of the classrooms have been designed for completely movable and relocatable furniture, including storage cabinets. The only built-ins we're actually going to do is a sink cabinet in each room, and then the wet lab, of course, is going to be a built-in lab tables and gas and all of the amenities for science and chemistry and all of the things they'll be doing there. It'll have a fume hood and chemical storage and that kind of thing. We're also completing all the bathrooms are going to be upgraded. We've added an abundance of new storage that we didn't have out there. They're actually a shortage of storage in the phase one area. We're creating some new custodial rooms, some staff toilet facilities and that type of thing. So that's the plan. Now we can move into the fly-through. We're going to fly through the first building one. This is coming down the covered walkway, and the first room we'll be entering is the culinary and hospitality classroom. Again, this is a fairly standard classroom with tables and chairs, all movable. All the technology will be done through Wi-Fi. We will be finding new lighting and new ceilings and new finishes in the room. Come back down the corridor and we'll be entering the dry lab, which is ag and health education. The teacher's desk is a fixed podium with a sink, and then the labs are our fixed and our movable tables we have actually going to have some pull-down power in those rooms also. And then we have a bank of fixed sinks and cabinets in the rear of the classroom. And between the two wet and dry labs, we have an equipment storage facility where we can store all of the goodies that they use in labs, such as beakers and microscopes and stuff like that. They can be secured at night and kept out of the way of the students. Then we enter the wet lab, which has the fixed counters. We haven't got into the actual addition of the gas jets and the power that goes on the counters, but you get the idea of the fixed counters, and it has a fume hood there in the back and a chemical storage cabinet adjacent to the fume hood. And then, of course, we're gonna take a walk through the bathrooms before we get out of the building. Those will be completely redone in the general flavor of phase one when they're done. And this is actually just coming down and visiting the other rooms as we go. Gonna swing through the last bathroom. What's nice about this program, you can kind of draw a line where you want to walk, and it just kind of follows you through and picks up all of the detail as you go. Now, why don't we move up to the building 2, we call it, and we'll do a very similar walkthrough. First one is we're gonna walk through some more bathrooms here, so let's. These would be the staff bathrooms.
Okay, good. She wants to make sure.
We're even going to go into the custodial room here for you. This is going out into the covered walkway, and we'll end up at the first classroom in the wing. So the first classroom is basically a core classroom. So it's a typical classroom with tables and chairs, very movable, very mobile. A lot of our new schools that we've been doing is with the collaborative 21st century design is that we've been pushing to the total flexibility within the classroom. So we've seen it in action, and it works very well. Second room would be architecture and engineering. In this, we actually introduced some drafting boards, some printers. We're going to have 3D printer capabilities in the room. And since all of our work today is done by computers, everything will be done at the desks on computers, and no more drafting tables and pencils and paper. The next room would be the manufacturing. Design and construction. Again, a series of more industrial type tables and stools. It'll have pull down power out of the ceiling. The tables again can be moved in any configuration, singles, doubles, quads. And a lot of tall storage cabinets that are all on wheels and movable, so they can be moved where they're needed. Then the last is the health occupation, which is a very similar room than the last one you saw. They're very flexible and movable. Another feature that one or or more of the walls will have the new magnetic whiteboards that we're starting to put into classrooms, which have been very successful. We just completed another school for another district that did it, and they're great. Very user-friendly, and the students and teachers like them. And we have actually, this is actually an outdoor breezeway that we're turning into a large storage facility. If they do have, let's say, health occupations, they might have a hospital bed or a bloodletting table or something that they don't use all the time. They need a place to put it. So we've created a large storeroom for that. And then we'll get a little walkthrough through the bathrooms again, and then we'll move over to the ed classroom. Along with while we're wandering around through the bathrooms here, we're also going to be looking at new security fencing around the facility that's not there now. We're also going to be working on the NCCT site to kind of separate that from some of the county portables that are out there. And we've got some fencing needs that are going to happen there also. Of course, we're going to have some new landscaping and new finishes and paint. So when it's all done, it's going to look really nice. We just had a meeting this morning with our landscape architect talking about some of the things we're proposing, so. So now we're getting out into the portable area. Now we go to the third. This is the ed office and for adult education. It contains a couple of offices for counseling. It includes a testing room, a storage room for materials, a couple of restrooms, a waiting area, some lockers, because part of the testing program is they have to check everything into a locker, so they're going in freehand into the testing place. So we have receptionist waiting area. You can see the lockers there to the left. I'm going to have to redo this. We're going through an awful lot of bathrooms here. Waiting area. One of our counseling offices and private office, and a storage room, again, for materials and mostly testing materials and adult ed packages and things like that. This is one of the private offices. One of the criteria of the testing is that the testing room be transparent, and there's some rules they have to have for that. And so you can see a lot of glass that you can see, and we have each testing station is a cubicle set by the standards, the height and width and all of the things that they need, and each one will have a computer. And another testing office, or I'm sorry, a counseling office or an office for the double ed. The receptionist, waiting area. And we're back outside again to the plaza outside. So that concludes that fly-through, and really appreciate you having us here and let us show you our work. And we're proud to work with it, and we're enjoying putting the package together for you. So we'll keep you informed at the next level.
It looks great. I just had one question.
Sure.
Are we being green when it comes to like the, are we going to be using blowers or paper for the lavatories?
Hand dryers.
Okay.
Electric hand dryers, yeah, oh yeah.
All right.
With the new building, great, it's going to incorporate all of the new requirements of the Green Building Code that came out of 2016. So you probably haven't done a building in the district with the new Green Building Code requirements. They're quite exciting, and that's one of them. You can't, paper is kind of no anymore.
Okay, great, thank you.
They have several, the ones that go down, the ones that go under, so that's it. Are there any other questions? I'll turn it back to Andy.
I have a question.
Sure.
I will say that sometimes in the bathrooms, paper is nice when we have nursing, pumping parents and all, there's all sorts of situations where sometimes people need paper and a hand towel. So every once in a while, it's handy too, just to throw that out
You
there.
can always put one in there. I mean,
Yes,
it's not
so
forbidden.
I think it's important
It's not forbidden.
we might think about having both in some, just to throw it out
It's going to
there.
be paper towels actually in each sink of each classroom. We have a sink unit with two sinks, a deep sink and a shallow sink. And then
Perfect,
we're going to
yeah.
have paper towel and soap dispenser at each one of those things within the classroom.
Perfect, yeah,
Okay.
looks great. Don Stoffer has a comment, so we're going to take a public comment, and then we'll have, I'm sure, more board comment too.
Okay, great,
So,
thank you.
Hello again. I really appreciate, the power, the availability of water, gas in the perimeters of those science-oriented classrooms. That's a great resource. One of the things that we want to do is leave as much interior space in each of the rooms free as possible. And I appreciate, it looked like there were most of the furniture looked like it would be stuff that could be moved, which is great. One thing that I would recommend against would be the fixed science lab demonstration table at one end of the classroom. That actually takes up quite a bit of space. And you end up with an instructor behind this thing separated from the class. And so it definitely fits a 20th century model of education as opposed to a 21st, just my personal opinion. Speaking of 21st century needs, you're talking about maternal needs. I've had some feedback from members who would rather not have to use the restroom to nurse their children. So hopefully somewhere in these buildings there will be space where a mother can have a quiet space with her child. Also, it'd be nice in the first two wings to have, maybe I missed more unisex restrooms, again, for our gender questioning students. And I noticed there in some of the rooms there was talk of pull-down power, and I realize that's probably less expensive from power that might be available from the foundation up. I know just in terms of having free airspace, if you have a lot of things pulled down, it blocks views and makes it a little more difficult for the instructor. If possible, it'd be nice to have it from the ground up. Again, I realize there may be a cost factor there if you're having to dig up foundations to run conduit. And again, heavy on the portability when it comes to things like testing facility and all of that, where you can move furniture. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. And I was going to take board comments. Do you have something that you would like to say first, Dr. Parsons?
I would love board comments.
Okay.
I would like to just let you know the process that we'd like to use is at the August 10th meeting, we'd like to come back with this presentation one more time to let the public hear it more, because this is summer, so it's a very not very many people are here, and it gives the board time to reflect on the path educational programs as well as the construction, so we can get some final direction from the board to move forward.
Great. Do you have any comments?
I have a question. The very first room you took us through was culinary and hospitality. I was just wondering, why are we adding another room when are those all the 4-H or the FFH rooms on the phase that's already completed? There's no culinary or hospitality rooms that are already there?
Currently, we are using that for culinary, not so much hospitality, but culinary at this point. We have a lot of kids that want to be part of the program, and they would like to be more on the hospitality, the hotel industry. In fact, Cache Creek would like to use our culinary hospitality program as a training for their folks over at Cache Creek, and so we anticipate that we're going to need additional room to focus much more on hospitality, hotel business type of thing. And so we wanted to have that room, but like I said, the whole thing around this is that it's flexible, that we have an additional room there, though we can also use it for core academics, we can use it for other things as well.
Okay, so just because it said hospitality and doesn't mean we're stuck with that room with just that room?
Absolutely absolutely. And I think,
Okay.
and that's what the committee actually spent couple months discussing that, to not get too tied down to the labels we're putting on the wings or on the rooms, because they may change, and because we're talking about possibly drone technologies and things of that nature, well, we're not going to label a room drone technologies. And so we wanted to create spaces that we could use for a lot of different occupations.
Great. Any others? Okay. I appreciated talking about the green schools and making sure that we are thinking about, being environmental and whatnot. And so I also think about how exciting this is and the opportunity to maybe step outside the box too. And so I'm just going to throw out two ideas that might be a little, but one would be when I visited a new school recently, with skylights, it was just, to me, such a big impact on teaching and learning, because it just makes a big difference in a classroom to have a lot of natural light. And you talked about having to redo some things anyways up above, so that might be a good opportunity where it might be pretty cost effective to add some skylights. Would be something that it would be nice to know about. And then as the idea, I've seen some buildings come out that are putting landscaping on top of their roofs, actually, and I saw your face, but but that just fits in so well with everything that this school does. I think it would be incredibly cool to at least look into that. Obviously, it would lower the temperatures in the room. It would catch some of the rainfall that comes onto the roof, and so in thinking outside the box and making this really look like an incredible place and using every piece of it for teaching, I think of some of our science teachers who might love that. And then I appreciated Mr. Stoffer's comments as well, because I know that sometimes now the idea of a focus wall or a main area in the classroom is kind of going away a little bit, right, as we try to work with students. So looking at maybe taking out a couple of those places where there's a focus, or making it, as you said, easy to move around too. Okay. Oh, and we already redid a bathroom, but it was the NCCT bathroom. I just want to make sure that's a little different location on this campus, or maybe Mr. Landsberg, I know he had.
Yeah, the bathroom that you're referring to is we converted a bathroom to provide handicap access space, and that is a bathroom that is on the outside of the NCCT building, which is on the far west side of the campus. So it's not in the Bright project, and that bathroom was done to serve the county programs around the outside, because they did not have a code-compliant bathroom.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't replacing something that we had just done or anything. Okay, all right, okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you very much, Mr. Goldsworthy, for staying late. I'll give you a piece of chocolate for staying. You stayed long. All right.
You're just trying to get rid of those, aren't you?
Well, I always feel badly when people have to wait late for our meetings, and be prepared, because it's almost 10 o'clock when I will ask for an extension of time. Okay, so that takes us to N4 Washington Middle College High School Educator Effectiveness Funding Plan.
Thank you. Tonight, I just wanted to, you approved the Educator Effectiveness Grant for our district, which was almost $200,000 that went towards rigorous curriculum design, i.e. Dream Team, et cetera. Tonight, I'm bringing forward Washington Middle College High School's Educator Effectiveness Fund. The process is, so you're aware, it was awarded to West Sacramento Early College Prep High School based on the 2015-2016 ADA and staffing. However, a plan, which is required by CDE, was never presented to the charter board. And therefore, we have assumed fiduciary and all operational aspects of the school. So we're going through the process now, determining what the staff needs are, bringing it to the board and to the public of what we would like to do with the money and receive input. And then at a separate board meeting, it will be on action during the August 10th board meeting. It's basically $16,300 that is awarded to the charter school. There are two areas which the board is aware of that is part of the educational plan of the charter school. The first is being advancement via individual determination. Avid, which is a mandatory for all students 9 through 12. All teachers must participate in professional learning. Secondly, fuel education, which is our new curriculum for blended learning. And so these are the two areas that they would like to use the money on to provide training and support for their teachers. Next step, to receive any input from those here today and the board, and then requesting to take action at the next board meeting. Again, it's $16,137, funds to be spent on Avid and blended learning. Any questions or comments?
Just one question. How many students are enrolled for this year?
At this point, we have 35 kids.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your,
I'm sorry, 35 kids at middle college?
At this point, we have 35 enrolled and counting. Right now, we have 12 ninth graders, 4 10th graders, 12 11th graders, and 7 seniors at this point.
do we know what the numbers were prior to us taking this on? Or the numbers that they had there, were they comparable? Were they double? Were they, do you have any idea?
I can just say what it was during my time last year. It was about the same. Actually, it was a little bit less. I think there was 22 when I started in the district. It dropped off considerably the last 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm going to make a motion to go beyond 10 o'clock.
Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion to go beyond 10 o'clock? I will second that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? You're either in favor or you're opposed. This isn't an appropriate abstain. Yeah, okay. All in favor. For the record, since Ricky, okay.
That's good.
So, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that takes us to action items. 01, approval of revised job description for the accounting budget technician. Yeah. We're ready.
I'm Mike Reed now, so.
I'm like,
I've changed hats a couple times tonight. So what you have in front of you have a revised job description. The agreement that we have with CSEA, Article 17, requires us to go through a process in reclassification, and we did that earlier this year. There are a whole bunch of different positions that went through reclass. They were rolled up, and the board saw them in the budget for 17-18. So part of that was a position in the business office where a staff member retired November, December, in the position of a bookkeeper. Which is a very old position that has been in the district for a long time, but the need for a bookkeeper versus an accounting budget technician are two totally, completely different things. So Kylie and her team figured out what it was that they needed in the business office, worked with HR and CSEA to come up with a new job description, not having a bookkeeper, but having an accounting budget technician, which is able to do more aspects of the job in the business office other than just what the bookkeeper was doing. Again, this reclassification, this position was in the narrative and that Word document that listed all the different line items that were in the budget that the board saw about a month ago. You have the revised job description in here, and we are looking for the board to approve the job description.
Motion to approve.
third.
Thank you. So the motion was made by Board Trustee Cruz. It was seconded by Board Trustee Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Thank
Thank you.
So up next, we have the approval of resolution number 1718-02 for the purchase of data communications and services, Palo Alto Networks, and that is Kim Harrison, Director of Technology Education Services.
Good evening, President Kirby Gonzalez and trustees. I am here tonight to talk to you about a WSCA or a NASPA resolution to purchase Palo Alto Networks equipment. This is a product that allows us to monitor our network for security breaches, attempts on our network, and the way that the system works is it allows us to kind of crowdsource those in a product called Wildfire. And so as breaches come in or bugs come in and our system catches it, it actually sends this information to the cloud, which is an international global cloud that reports these instances of threats on our network. And this is something new. This is a product that a lot of districts are moving toward, and it would actually replace several of the products that we have. So we'd have one network security that would be under one umbrella for efficiency's sake, as well as the ability to be very proactive in catching those threats, whether it's through teachers clicking on a link, plugging in a USB drive that has a virus on it. It has the ability to shut that down and notify us so that we can not infect our entire network. So tonight I'm bringing the resolution to you so that we can take advantage of the procurement vehicle of the NASPA WSCA purchasing.
I'm just curious, do we get a lot of threats via hacking?
We do get a lot of attempts on our network in various different ways. And one of the things that Palo Alto did for us is they put an appliance on our network around spring break. And because it was spring break, they actually extended the length. And I do have a report that I'd be more than happy to provide to you that shows not only the attempts on our network, but also the ways in which they did that. And it could be through a cloud product. Even though we are a Google district, we do have teachers that will use Office 365 to store their files or other cloud solutions. It breaks it down by application and service. So it's actually a very comprehensive report. I think they ran it on our network for a couple of weeks to get a real feel for it and make sure, we wanted to make sure that this was a product that we would be able to use and that we found that it would be very beneficial. But I'd be more than happy to provide that for you guys.
Yeah, please. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll ask quickly, too. Will this help with some of the email spam, too, or is that just different?
Yes, yes. It'll be monitoring known threats that come in. And so basically, as it sees a threat, for example, some of the threats that we've seen in the last several months have started in Europe or on the East Coast. And as they've progressed, as people share links, it infiltrates and gets into our network. Because this would be a global reporting of threats, as soon as something pops up, the Wildfire product would automatically know that if that were to attempt on our network. So it would shut it down if it's known. The only thing that it might not catch is something that would begin in West Sacramento or something that we were the first, ones to be attacked.
Thank you.
Kim, real quick question. What is the maintenance every year?
The maintenance, I do not have that total for you, but it is, it's comparable to the two products that it's replacing.
Okay.
So this was replacing our Kaspersky virus protection, as well as our Sonic wall firewall. So it is a little bit more in the beginning because we have to pay for the equipment, the actual appliance that goes onto our network, but the ongoing costs are comparable to what we would pay for those services. And by going through the WSCA, we're actually able to save on about $3,000 a year on those licensing fees.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. This is a roll call vote, but I still need a motion in a second.
Did you get a second already?
No, so I said first, okay, so The motion was made by Board Vice President Pizzotti. It was seconded by Board Trustee Alcala, and we're going to do a roll call vote. I vote aye. Board Trustee Cruz.
Aye.
Board Trustee Wong.
Aye.
Vice President Pizzotti.
Aye.
Board Trustee Alcala.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and that takes us to the approval of the independent contracting agreement between CDWG and Washington Unified School District.
Palo Alto Networks does not sell directly to school districts. They go through a reseller, and CDWG is our reseller that we've been working with. A local rep has come out and set everything up with us. So this is, they're a certified reseller on this type of an agreement. So this would be approving the contract to generate the PO so that we can purchase the product.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry. The equipment is the same exact cost as the contract agreement?
No, I had put the WSCA amount of the equipment is $96,848, and that includes the equipment. It includes, without getting too technical, it includes all of the equipment that we need, as well as the licensing, because a lot of these services, you have to pay an annual license to have their service. It also includes training, because I will need to have both of my systems engineers be trained on this new product, so that includes the training for them to come in and do training. It includes the fees that go along with implementing it on our network, and that just-in-time support as we're doing that implementation. This is not the annual cost, if that's your question.
But on the end of each of O2 and O3 says financial impact, and they're exact same amounts on each one.
And I probably, on the WSCA one, the previous one, I probably should have not put that amount.
We're not paying twice.
We are not
Okay,
paying
thank you.
twice.
Thank you.
No way.
Okay.
Okay. So the motion was made by Board Trustee Wong. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Board Vice President Pizzotti. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye.
Thank you.
Here's your piece of chocolate. Sorry, ladies. All right, that takes us to board governance. P1 is board discussion, board bylaws, 9240, board development for the 2017-2018 school year. And we have Superintendent Linda Luna.
President Kirby Gonzalez and Board of Trustees, we've done a really good job in looking at our board policies, and we have revised our board bylaws. And so we want to make sure that we're living our policies and bylaws and regulations as we continue to go through our policies. So this particular one, as we have done budget development, the board has approved the overall budget for our district. And so in this particular board bylaw, we want direction as staff on looking at the professional development plan of the board. We do that in educational services for all the teachers, and gratefully, we're doing that now with all classified staff. We're doing that all now with administration. So we'd like to make sure that we have the budget for the board. And so that's why this board bylaw is being brought forward, so that the board can discuss and make some decisions and give us some direction.
Perfect, thank you. So one of the wording, the sentences here is all board development shall be discussed by the board as a whole prior to scheduling or payment, and that's one that we haven't been living. And so one thought I might say, and first of all, I think it's really great that we have a board that's doing professional development in these opportunities, and I think that that is critical to our work here, and I think that that is very important. I very much appreciate being part of a board that does. My thought maybe, I don't know if you have a list of CSBA type conferences. Most things I think fall under that. So my thought is maybe we could add something like, with the exception of CSBA courses, or CSBA, however we want to say that.
I'm sorry, where are you? I don't know.
Oh, this is the board bylaw 9240. So there's a sentence right here, and it says, "All board development shall be discussed by the board as a whole prior to scheduling."
You don't have it.
No, I don't have it.
Here, you
That's
can
why.
have mine. And so my thought is maybe we could add with the exception of, CSBA
programs.
conferences, and then maybe a language to, as long as we're financially as long as financially solvent or something like that. And then we can discuss as a board, any other things, as we did in the past, a long time ago, I remember with cap to cap or things like that. Those could come to us, but maybe not CSBA.
So you're suggesting that all CSBA trainings, programs that we go to would be exempt from having to have a discussion about it? Everything else would come before the board in a discussion format before we actually take action to approve funding for that?
Yeah.
That's what. Okay.
That's what I'm
good with that.
proposing, but I'm
Yeah.
seeing what people think. It might also be.
Just trying to understand.
Yeah. I think it would be nice for us to have a list, and maybe we could even just include that in here for CSBA. For example, the delegate, pieces would fall under that. I think the Latino School Board Association falls under that. And so maybe it would be nice to just have that breakdown of all the things that are CSBA, the annual conference. And I don't know what the language would look like to say, as long as we're financially, if we're in a financially tight time, we might not be allowing that.
President Kirby Gonzalez, if the board would like to just hear the list from CSBA, what we have is the annual education conference, which is usually in December. We also have the Masters in Governance courses to be certified under the governance there. And those are just one time. So once a board of trustee member has completed that, you're not going to go back to that so much. There's also a delegate assembly, and we have a delegate here on our board representing our district as well as the region. There is a CSBA Leadership Institute. There is the California Latino School Boards Association. There's also, I believe it's called the California Asian Pacific Islander School Board Association, also under CSBA. So those are the ones that fall under CSBA. The board also belongs and pays dues to Yolo County Office of Education School Board. And so there is a membership fee for that in particular. The board does also have memberships of publications, and you receive those in your binders of updated reading on board governance. And so those are pretty much the big ones that are constant through the board development that we've seen in the few years in the budget.
And some districts actually even break down like per board member an amount, like a number, and then maybe you decide, oh, I want to go to this. Oh, no, instead I want to go to this. My thinking was maybe it would be easier to just put them all under an umbrella of CSBA, and then any others we talk about, and we're not necessarily doing that level of keeping track of them. But I just want to make sure, since we haven't been following board policy, we need to look at it and what is manageable.
What does our budget fall, it's late, fall
That's
under?
okay.
I mean, I would like to see,
Expenditures?
to be transparent, yeah, I'd like to see what is being spent. I think the community has a right to see, that we're not spending millions, although we need, to be educated ourselves. I don't know that we've ever been provided, here's a budget for the board and your training or publications. So, I don't know if that's something we want to look at, but I agree, we need to, I want to be transparent. I'd like to see the expenditures, and if it has to be maybe on our website, under the board or something, just because I think, it seems like each year we're spending more and more. And I'm not sure which pot of money that's coming from.
So when I first came to the district, I had asked the question because I think that the board's expenditures should be separated, you are, as elected officials, from employees and employee development of the district. So there is a separate line item for the Board of Trustees. I don't know what the history is prior to me being here, but I requested that to be completely separate. In terms of allocation, there was an allocation given, and we do exceed that allocation as it was a guess. There was no rhyme or reason for that. At that time, not all board members were attending CSBA. Now, all our board members attend CSCA, and also at that time, I don't even know prior to me coming here whether board members went to Masters in Governance. And so pretty much almost all of our board members are either planning to or have completed some of the coursework for Masters in Governance. So the expenditures are different, and I don't know what that base had been from or even had it been changed all these years. The annual conference that the board attends is always either in San Francisco, which is less expensive because you're not paying airfare, or then it's every other year where it's San Francisco or San Diego. And so it's really up to the board how you'd like to do that, and we can certainly get all of the expenditures to see the pattern of it over the past few years. And then if you want, we can, after receiving that information, have another discussion.
What is the allocation?
$10,000. And that doesn't even cover the annual conference. No. So I don't know whether that has just been the standard for 20 years, 10 years. Things change, times have changed, prices have changed, travel has changed. So I think what we should do is maybe look at the 3 years. We always look at a 3-year trend. So let's find out what has been happening in the past 3 years. Although the board is different now than even 3 years ago, and we have a delegate here, and and everybody is attending CSBA. So I think it really kind of looks at the need also for the board. If every 2 years there are going to be new board members on the board, then those you want your new board members receiving the training.
And we are having a facilitator come work with our board as we do our board self-evaluation, and that would be another idea of, board development that goes on here too. So I do think it's an important conversation to have, because there were times where, I thought, I don't even know how much we're spending, and that's not okay if we had, staff coming to us and saying, I don't know what we're doing. And so just so we're aware of it and we're smart about it, not that we're not doing it.
Right. Right. So would you like me to bring it back after receiving the information?
Yep. It might
Are
be
there any
something
other
we
comments?
should talk about at the governance.
Okay.
Yeah, we can definitely.
So why
do
don't we, should the direction be to move this to the our governance team, and they can look at that language and how that,
The special.
our special
Or
one together.
governance.
Okay,
Yeah, I was
great.
going to say, no, I don't think it's appropriate for us. but-
Okay, then yes,
The
okay.
26th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, 26. Perfect, thank you.
Got it?
I don't know if you
Okay.
need your page back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good, and that gives us some time to think about it too.
Well, and
This is our
gives her
first.
time to gather
This is gonna be
whatever
her.
she needs to gather.
No, what is it? Our board governance.
Okay, great. So now we're at P2, the second read and approval of Board Policy and Administrative Regulation Series 5000.
Okay, so I think I should get an extra piece of chocolate if we can do this in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I should have enough. I won't give any to board members if I run out.
So,
I
all
will
kidding aside,
forego mine for
I just
her.
want to thank
don't-
trustees Wong and Pizzotti, because they reviewed again Series 5000 for the board, in ensuring that the board's recommendations from the previous meeting were in the language that you have in front of you. What we have to do this evening, and trustees Pizzotti and Wong did also review these, is that CSBA has sent revisions to the Series 5000 that the board did not see in the first read. However, trustees Pizzotti and Wong reviewed these last week at the board subcommittee meeting for policy. So if I may quickly run through that with you with the board, specifically by page number. and by policy number, and we can directly point to you where the changes are. So the first change is on page 2, where the interest was to ensure that when it says, our policies say parents and guardians, that it's inclusive of foster caregivers when appropriate. And so instead of going through 745 phrases of parents and guardians, we felt it would be probably better for the legal counsel to help us define what policies refer to in parents, in guardians, and you'll see that on page 2. And so that's the addition of language to define so that it moves forward from that page on. Any questions on that?
Great.
Okay. Next is on page 26. This is a revised policy, which is Board Policy 5111. And in this particular policy, the interest is to include language that is congruent with our safe haven resolution. And so that is highlighted at the bottom of page 26 there. And that is congruent with our resolution in regards to safe haven in our district. Any questions on that?
No, great. Nope.
The next revision from CSBA is on page 32, which is Board Policy 5111.1. And this is, I believe the board had a discussion in the previous meeting, but we wanted to make sure that in this particular one, because it is a revision, but it does reflect what the board discussed last time, that any kind of appeals of enrollment denial will go through the superintendent. There's many processes before it gets to me, but the appeal would come to me and it would be the final decision instead of coming to the board.
Right.
So I want to make sure that that is still in alignment with the board. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, page 32. Page 32 is about, oh wait, I'm sorry, my apologies, we just did that. If we can now go to page 49.
35.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Page 30.
Foster youth residency for our council.
Thank you. On page 35 at the top, item number 9, we did add student will, in terms of residency requirements for foster children.
Can you just tell me very briefly what that exactly means? Superintendent.
We talked about this in the subcommittee. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So students in foster care actually, and home students actually have a right to remain in their school of origin.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So,
Got it. So it's to remain in their school of where they are right now.
no,
If that is the
this has to do with district requirements so that you're not making them recertify every single year. So if they move to Sacramento, but they stay here because Washington is their school of origin, that you're not making, they already meet all the needs of district requirements for sports, for everything else, and you're not making them reapply every single year.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. So that's just automatic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And this one, in the next one on page 49, it's Board Policy 5112.5, and staff, we just want to make sure that we have the clarity of direction on this. This is regarding open and closed campuses. So it's my understanding that we are moving forward a recommendation to stay status quo of closed campus. However, if it does come up in requests of open campus, that we would research that. Now, I want to make sure that I am understanding that correctly, or if we're supposed to be doing that now.
I'm the only one who wants it to be an open campus, basically. So.
Yes, status quo is what?
Status quo.
Status
basically
quo.
it's borderline.
Okay, all right.
But I do have a question. It says that, they can't leave the school grounds without written permission of their parents. Does that go to the students that are 18?
No,
Because
No,
there's
this is-
nothing mentioned in here about.
they're 18, they don't.
Students
No,
that are 18.
I understand that,
yeah.
but there's nothing mentioned in the policies, and I didn't know if the school itself had its own policies in the senior contract or whatever.
Yeah, they sign themselves out if they're 18 years old. And if I can ask our legal counsel, is that located somewhere? I remember reading it somewhere.
Well,
where
maybe-
18-year-olds sign themselves out.
But then that would be
I do believe it is
with,
in the 5,000s, and I can do a word search really quick.
Okay.
but then it would be with authorization because they have to sign themselves out.
Yes.
So it says students who leave without authorization, but they're giving themselves authorization if they're 18.
This is a truncated version of the BP, so I feel like it was in the series somehow.
I think, yeah, and so if
Yeah,
we,
so-
legal counsel, they're going to do the word search on that, and let's, because I do remember reading that.
Yeah, it was.
And I would like to follow up on that, Trustee Cruz, to make sure it's in the handbook for the high school,
Yeah.
and so for parents to know that.
Because not
as
only
well.
leaving campus, but once they turn 18, I mean, there's things that they can just sign on their own. And I don't know if it's in the handbook, I don't know if it's a policy of the high school, such as absent, I was absent, They- whatever.
Yeah.
Even signing for sports.
Right.
The field trips and all that, once they're, and I don't know if that's anywhere in our policy, it has to be policy, local handbook, where it has to be. But
I think we should look at all of those different areas, and so we'll follow up on that with the board. I'm going to have Dr. Parsons make sure he takes note of that. Okay, so then we have revisions on page 54, which is Board Policy and Administrative Regulations 5113.
52?
52 and 54. This has to do with absences and excuses, and so you see where CSBA has updated language. They have moved a lot of the language to the administrative regulation instead of keeping it in policy. Questions?
Questions on 52? Is that what you're asking?
52 and 54?
I just have a very quick one, and I'm obviously 100% in favor of students' religious freedom. Having taught, I think, students of probably every religion, I know I've had students who've left campus, had a safe spot on campus to pray, a safe place within the school facility. I'm wondering when they would need to leave campus, or what situation that would be for religious reasons.
Some students stay home for religious or cultural. For instance, Chinese New Year's, many Chinese students do not attend school on that day of the new year. Some students, some Jewish students would not attend school during their celebrations as well. So it just really depends. In terms, I haven't come across those students requesting to pray at certain times of the day for their religious and cultural preferences.
Good.
what about like the
I just-
Muslim, the
Yeah, my
clubs,
The-
clubs that they have?
They
in
do
the-
have
in the
clubs
high
that do
school?
that, yes.
So
Yeah.
they do.
I just
that might
wanna
be part
make-
of their club, I don't know.
I just want to make sure that, and the time changes depending on what time of year it is and whatnot. Sometimes it's during class time. So my only point was I wanted to make sure that we were accommodating students if they need to leave, keeping them on campus versus not coming to school at all, if there's a time we can accommodate them. So I'm okay with this language. I just want to make sure that we're also sensitive on our campuses.
Yes, thank
Versus
you.
I'd rather a child come to school if it's just a 10-minute type
Right.
thing.
Absolutely, thank you. The next one is page 99 in regards to Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5121. We just wanted to have on record this evening that we are removing Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5121 from the board's approval this evening. This particular, on page 99, we've taken it out because it has to do with grades and evaluation of student achievement. And we're going to have a task force or a committee of teachers and administration looking at calibration of grades before we actually put into policy. We'd like to have the staff input on that.
Great.
So we will be bringing that back. The next one is page 237, which is Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5141.25. 237.
Oh, I see.
The board did discuss this particular policy and regulation regarding the availability of condoms, and we need some clarity. We did see the meeting from the last time it was discussed, and the staff needs clarity as to which particular option the board was looking at.
I thought we asked the question, what is current practice? And
The current practice is that it is not readily available. We do have health care professionals on on all of our campuses, whether it's mostly part-time, so that would be school nurses that would qualify under healthcare professionals.
so my question was, at the least at the high school level, would the condoms be readily available anytime a student is on that campus? Or would they have to wait for a healthcare professional in order to get a condom? If this high school doesn't have a healthcare professional there all the time?
I think both options actually call for some counsel from healthcare professionals. Both options actually call for that. The first one is only from a licensed healthcare professional. The second option is that they will be available to counsel the students upon their request.
I believe it was asked last time, and council had confirmed that information had to be provided by a healthcare professional. Was that, I think
Related
that,
information
I
shall
recall
be
that we had
provided
asked
at
you
the same
specifically.
location. And a licensed healthcare shall be available. Doesn't mean they have to be counseled by.
Yeah, that was our thought.
Yeah.
There's some tension in the law with regards to this particular board policy. And so there is an education code section that says, all information on healthcare, et cetera, shall be provided by somebody that's licensed to do so. And so there's a tension with regards to whether the distribution of condoms is considered kind of healthcare, or if it's more of just kind of an educational byproduct. And so what the CSBA model policy would expect is that if you're going to change the policy to make them more available, you would be agreeing to also speak with the parents first and kind of do an assessment of what the parents and the staff have to say before you implement that policy, and then have either an opt-in or an opt-out process so that the parents could say whether or not they wanted to allow their children to have access.
Unless they're 18.
Correct.
Could it be the type of thing where it's opt-out only, we don't need opt-in? Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's plenty of things that are offered where information is given to families and then they can opt out, but they don't have to opt in.
I think we would have to look at more of the case law. Right now, there is no California case law on this, and so we looked at some of the federal cases, and it's kind of gone both ways. And so I think you want to, that's why my recommendation would be to, before you move forward with making any major changes, that you do a study with the parents and find out exactly what the high school is doing already.
Okay.
My understanding of that question with now a current colleague actually who oversees this is that there are a couple of districts who do an opt-out.
Only.
Opt-out only, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
So,
than
but
to
I mean,
try to
it's still,
manage
but they
opt-in.
didn't, they phased it in, but yeah, they did some research, but
Okay.
yeah, there are sub-districts who are.
My concern is that I would hate for students not to have access. Anyway, so I would.
So my thought would be option one, but continue, as you said, another district looked at phasing it in or looking at, and so keeping the conversation going about possibly moving to option two. Because I would prefer option two personally, but it sounds like
would
with the law that we should start, where we are, keep where we are right now, option one, as we look and do some more work to get to option two, is what I'm hearing.
So,
Either way.
so with that, we will put together a manner in which parents and staff would be able to provide direct feedback regarding this particular board policy as part of the study. and also draft some opt-in and opt-out processes that the board can look at for decisions.
Yeah, and I.
Hopefully just opt out.
Well, I would encourage staff who are looking into to actually contact Charlotte Smith at the Department of Ed, who's been looking at this across the state, and see what the best practice is and how people have done it. So
And
it's not easy. It's not easy.
President Kirby Gonzalez, and so if the board chooses to adopt option one at this point, which I think is most congruent with your current policy, if you look at the paragraph underneath highlighted, the highlighted yellow paragraph, it does have the opt-out option.
So,
Okay.
so then, only a licensed healthcare professional, how many days a week at the high school do we have a licensed healthcare professional there?
Thank you.
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, because I know our school nurses are shared across the
Right,
district.
that's
And
why
we
I'm
have
saying.
four. We have four for all of our schools. I don't know if River
Right.
City has a full-time.
So only on the days when the nurses are there.
It says or designee.
Yeah, but it could.
Well, right. But it says only licensed, unless we have a designee, unless the superintendent makes a designee.
Would our social workers be allowed to also hand out condoms? They're not licensed
Well,
healthcare
or
professionals.
designee.
But it doesn't say they
It says
have to
or
be
designee.
licensed.
Number one says or designee, but the other one, the bottom one seems to be a little more restrictive.
That's why I thought we were saying we're sticking with number one until we get more information.
We're not doing either right now.
number one has designee.
No, it's authorized, or the superintendent's designee.
It doesn't
So
say the
it says
designee
only,
has to be
yeah,
licensed.
it's either the superintendent or the superintendent's designee.
So she could
Only licensed care,
designate the vice
authorized
Vice
by the
principal, yeah.
superintendent. or
You could
Yeah,
designate the
correct.
vice principal
Yes,
in
who's
option
there
there
all
one,
the time. Yeah,
Correct.
who is there all the time.
right.
I-
We're
I would
all
be more
saying the same
comfortable.
thing.
I would be more comfortable with that, yeah.
But that's what it already
I
says.
don't, I'm not sure if I
That's not
understand.
what we do. We don't provide condoms currently.
Right, so, no, I read it as if it were to, so only a licensed healthcare authorized by the superintendent or superintendent's designee may provide, well, yeah. So, comma, may provide condoms to individual students. It's not, yeah,
It's not a designee.
yeah,
Option one is not a designee.
right,
Option one is the healthcare professional.
right, correct. That's my
Well,
understanding.
then why does it say or
It
designee?
says
That's not what it says.
That language should just
It says
come out.
superintendent,
So maybe we get
That the
clarification.
superintendent is, that the healthcare professional is authorized by the superintendent or Dr. Parsons or Principal Moisage, but nobody is the licensed healthcare professional except the school nurse in our district employment. We do, Dr. Parsons reminded me that we do partner with another healthcare facilitator that is on our high school campus that provides education in sex education and other matters as well. I don't know if they have office hours. We can look into that to see. So that's the way I interpret option one.
what about only licensed healthcare professionals, comma, or designee authorized by the superintendent may provide condoms to individuals?
That's not the model. I mean-
The reason, and I think we talked about this maybe last time a little bit, the reason that there are the two options, there is this tension in the law again about whether the distribution of condoms is considered to be medical care or treatment. And if it is considered to be medical care or treatment, then pursuant to the Education Code 49422, only a licensed healthcare provider can provide that healthcare or treatment. And so that would be a registered nurse or whomever, whatever the healthcare professionals working with the district would be. And so in that case, unless Linda has an RN license or an MD license that I'm unaware of, she would not have the authority then to distribute or designate someone else to distribute who's not a healthcare provider.
So we can be here all night with this. Should we
Yeah.
just leave it as it is and
So option
get
one
further
is what we're
information?
recommending,
We don't have to
or what I'm
recommend.
hearing is closest to our current policy.
Current policy is we do not distribute condoms, period.
I'm sorry, I heard that option one was closest to our current
That's what
policy
she
because
said. That's what she said.
because we have other people distributing condoms through reproductive health services.
To the principal's knowledge, during his time there, he's not been asked. It may be because nobody is aware of the policy.
And if I could interrupt, I'm sorry, that if a healthcare provider is providing condoms to students as part of healthcare services, they are not going to tell the principal.
Right.
Because there's a confidentiality
Right.
that in the medical services provided.
So, but our current practice is we've authorized them to, if they are, we generally know that we authorize them to do that as part of reproductive health education and services that they provide to our students.
The law policy says may and not shall.
Right, right,
They may be already doing it, we wouldn't necessarily know.
right.
Hopefully they're not buying it themselves.
Go to Planned Parenthood, they give you.
No, we have to adopt something and have it. Our closest
All
is
right.
option one.
So I stand by the option one, but then
I agree.
exploring from parents.
Option one makes the most sense again. It seems to be our closest to our current practice.
And is there follow-up that the board is asking staff to do in regards to feedback to move towards option two in the future?
To see if there's need from, from parents, and to check in to see what the state model might be a recommendation. I guess. Does that sound good with everyone?
Sounds fine.
Wonderful.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. The next one is page 279, which is Board Policy and Regulation 5141.52, and it is updated language regarding suicide prevention. I believe it was in January of 2017, school districts were to get policies and trainings in order for suicide prevention. And so you see on page 279, CSBA has crafted language to assist school districts with this. It's much more direct, much more direct.
It would be
And
nice
much
to-
more emphasis on training.
It would be nice to have something on our website as well, maybe even just a link to the, to the hotline or numbers. It would be nice to have something if somebody goes searching and they're on student health, services.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, on page 383, we have an administrative regulation 5145.3, which is updated language for non-discrimination and harassment. What we've done on this particular administrative regulation is added the Director of Student and Family Support Services, because this is these series of policies and regulations have to do with students, and that's going to be the first stop. If it was about employees, then the first stop would be with HR. So I thought it best that we would include Director of Student and Family Support Services, because that's where the first initial complaint will go to.
Okay.
The next one is 396, which is updated parent notifications, which is an annual notification we give to our parents in regards to parents' rights. And so each year, we should be cross-referencing and making sure that new laws, new policies in place are reflected in our annual notifications to our parents. This is the exhibit that CSBA has recommended in terms of what's new and what needs to be added. And so upon this particular approval, Jerry Smith is already cross-referencing from here and also from other counties in regards to new notifications for our parents.
And how will those be notified? I know we just approved like the peach jar communication. I mean, are these going to be electronic? Do they just have a place on our website? Do they?
These require a signature from parents.
Okay.
And
Got
so these are going to be paper packets that every student receives on the first day of school or first week of school, and some of the documents require parent signatures.
Great, thank you.
And so the last one is page 448, which is updated language for before and after school programs. And if you see on page, I believe it's 449, it's where it says option 1 and option 2, I believe from the board's last discussion on Series 5000, we're staying with option 2, which is where we can offer fee-for-services for before and after school programs. And I believe that's the most current updates after our subcommittee of policy has reviewed. So if it's the board's pleasure to accept Series 5000 as is, and we will bring back that one policy and regulation next year in regards to calibration of grades and assessments. We move that the board would consider approving this series.
Great.
I move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so motion was made by Board Trustee Wong, seconded by Board Trustee Akala. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye. Any opposed?
No.
All right, and that takes us to board discussion on CalSTRS divestment policy.
So just an introduction, I think we have one slide just to introduce so that the board can enter into discussion. As we know, CalSTRS is for our certificated staff. It's the California State Teachers Retirement System, but it also includes certificated administration. We know that this is a state pension program. And back in 2013, the governor had put into school districts that they were going to require increases for school districts to increase pension obligations to all of their employees. So we're not talking about CalPERS, this is only about CalSTRS. So we just wanted to remind the board of what that actual reform looks like. And so here we are in 2017-18, and in the past 4 years, school districts have increased the allocations to STRS pensions from 8.25%, and now we're moving into 14.3% for each employee that is under CalSTRS. With the goal in mind of by 2020, 2021, the governor had projected that school districts would be responsible for 19.10% of each certificated employee's pension. And so we wanted to assure the board that from the last budget approval that the board did, that this is inside the multi-year budget. You see there that in 2017-18, this current year, on the left-hand side in the blue, the cost of STRS contributions is $582,380. Next year, it increases to $610,827, and in 2019-20, it doesn't increase there. Why is that, Scott?
It shows it goes.
It increases another $582,000. Thank you. So we just wanted to give that as a base of why divestment policies may be pertinent for the board to discuss. And so I'll leave that now for Trustee Posadi.
Yeah, so when the legislature introduces bills that require CalPERS and CalSTRS to divest from a particular industry or, a company or a country that, for whatever given reason that they may have, it creates less of an investment opportunity for CalSTRS and CalPERS. Thus, going back to this slide right here, with the 7.5% that CalSTRS and CalPERS were getting at their return rate having been downgraded to only 7%, that causes us to have to increase as employers the contribution we make into CalSTRS payments. That now means that we have less money to put into the classroom. So I wanted to discuss and make a recommendation that we draft a resolution opposing, the resolution would say that this district opposes any legislation that has to do with the divestment of anything, of any, or requirement of divestment from CalSTRS or CalPERS. And instead, we would request that the author consider engagement. And engagement is a different process. And if you look at the divestment policy from CalSTRS, what it says is this policy sets forth CalSTRS policy for responding to external or internal initiatives to divest of individual or groups of securities for purposes of achieving certain goals that do not appear to be primarily investment related. So if you go down to when pressured to divest, CalSTRS firmly believes that active and direct engagement is the best way to resolve issues. Face-to-face meetings with shareholders and senior management or the board of directors are essential to bringing about change in a corporation. No further action will be taken until all efforts at engagement have been fully exhausted. Efforts at engagement include, but are not limited to, shareholder resolutions, media campaigns, and other efforts at engagement. So if we have our opposition to a piece of legislation is enough to make an author think about what it is that they're doing. It may not make them stop what they're doing, but it does make them think about it. And I'm simply suggesting that this board make I'm making a recommendation that this board draft a resolution to oppose any divestment bills that come out of the legislature.
I'm failing to see kind of the jurisdictional kind of boundaries that this, in terms of this body as a school board. I understand the issue that you very much understand that, but STRS has a board that's appointed, and that seems to be their jurisdiction, and I'm unclear as to whether or not that type of resolution would fall within kind of the scope and rules and responsibilities of this board. I'm just unclear.
What are you specifically unclear about?
I just don't think it's within our jurisdiction to actually have a resolution about divestment policy. That's it.
Okay, well, I believe that we can draft resolutions on any policies that we as a board choose to adopt that represent the views of this board, and that would be doing so. It's only a resolution. So it's, in my opinion, it's something that kind of takes a stand and says we oppose divestment because it is fundamental to the ability for CalPERS to sustain sustain their financial growth. And that's one thing that we keep seeing is attacks on pensions. And when you hear the words unfunded liability time and time again, well, I hate that term. I hate the term unfunded liability. It is a promise that we made to employees. And when you have more requirements from the legislature to divest in whatever the cause du jour is, then you have situations where we as small districts and employers are going to end up having to pay more. And I would rather not do that.
And this is just a matter of jurisdictional kind of role of the board. I know that in the past that other trustees have brought up different issues that the legislature is going forth, and as a board, you haven't voted it up. I'm just, as a matter of a jurisdictional matter, just trying to be consistent in terms of what our scope is as board members. I get it, and I've seen, it's not the first time that I've watched this board bring forth resolutions that impact legislation in Sacramento. I'm just asking from my perspective in terms of our role and our responsibilities. And of course, a trustee can bring up any resolution. It's not the first time. I'm just unclear as to kind of, there's a STIRS board that decides on whether or not they should divest or invest in things, and I just don't think it's our role to have a resolution telling them what they should or should not do, or what we should
We're not
oppose.
telling Cal STIRS
I
and
hear you.
PERS. We're telling the legislature.
It's okay to disagree.
Okay.
So what is it that you're asking for tonight?
I'm just asking, I'm making a recommendation that we draft a resolution to be brought back to us.
So do you want us to vote on it right now? What do you want us to do?
I'm making a recommendation that would be, I guess, to give Superintendent Luna direction to draft a resolution to bring back to us on the policy to oppose bills that have to do with divestment and encourage engagement instead. So it's kind of an oppose unless amended position of sorts, that we would discourage any divestment bill and encourage the author
I
to...
don't like the word "any," because that's way too broad, and anything that comes, then this resolution's just gonna knock any bill down. I
Any, what do you mean
disagree.
by any?
Well, you just said any
divestment bill.
any divestment. I don't like any, because that's too broad, and any divestment, I'm sorry, that comes, then this resolution's gonna cover that. I have been opposed of anytime anything happens in the legislature. Each one of us has our own opinion, each one has our individual voting rights, and to make a resolution that covers a global issue, if you want to narrow it down, if you want to talk specifics, I agree with Board Member Wong. You can bring an individual issue each time, but this just sounds like a global, it's not very specific.
I would say it's a global policy.
Yeah, so I don't, that scares me and concerns me that it's global, so I'm not supporting it at this time.
I'm thinking back with other resolutions. First of all, this is not my wheelhouse, divestment policy, and so I first would have to even understand and look more into STIRS and the things that are going on, and I appreciate your explanation in this document. I'm thinking back on how when we passed the resolution about our support of vaccines for our students, we had a model resolution that we looked at and brought, and we didn't have staff do that. So I feel uncomfortable asking staff to draft a resolution that feels more political in nature. I think that should come from us, or that we should have a model.
When I say staff, I was basically meaning me, but.
Okay. You said Superintendent Luna.
Yes.
So.
You did direct Superintendent Luna.
So I don't want to
I know
direct
that.
staff
Yes,
to
I
do
got it. Yeah, I
resolutions.
got it.
So my question would be, has anywhere passed a resolution like this, and what does that look like?
Kobe, let me say something. I'm not totally against your idea, but at least you brought up a good point. Any always concerns me, that word. I know you're going to work on language. That's your proposal. Right now, I'm not feeling real confident with our legislature, but sometimes good ideas have come. Maybe you divest from something like Driscoll strawberries, because maybe, let's say, CalPERS was in it, and we know Driscoll is not a good company. It does bad things to workers. So I could see divesting from something like that. The legislature, would say. I just, We have taken positions before, as Sarah said, with the immunization. I guess I'm just trying to find out more from you. That word "any," I think, has us all concerned. That's all. Was there something really specific you were thinking about, or are you just saying
No,
the
because
legislature in
the
general?
rationale behind any divestment bill, no matter how good or noble the cause is, the end result is the same thing if enacted. The end result is a loss of money to the investment fund. And that's the issue. The issue is we have to pay more to the investment fund and less to our kids in the classroom. That's the point behind any. So if our small voice being lent to the legislature as a no or an opposition can help, then I think we should be doing that. Because I think our promise to our teachers and our staff is something that we need to be able to do and make in terms of their retirement. But I hate hearing about how much we're required to pay every year and how it keeps going up and up and up. Divestment is part of that problem. And I just think we should take a stand on it. And that's my point with any. I would be happy if you can think of another word to use, but I think you kind of have to be inclusive. You don't want to say, okay, but this one's a really good idea. You don't want to. You want to just take a stand and stick with that stand. At least I wouldn't. I would want to stay firm on what the policy is. I'd prefer that way.
So from my perspective, and I can feel your passion, and I very much appreciate it. So what I would like to do personally is just for me, read up, look up, because this is just, as I said, outside of my wheelhouse. So I just want to get more information also. And so I will be doing so, and I appreciate you bringing this to our attention because it's something that I would not have known about otherwise.
So what's I've made the recommendation. Is there no action on it? Are we taking no action on
I
it?
thought it's just board discussion.
It's a discussion item, but
Right.
if there's consensus
There's no
from 3
directions.
board members to move forward, then we could. Otherwise, I'm saying I'd like to get more information first.
I'd like more information too. I'm not saying no, I'm not saying yes, I just want more info.
From whom? Sorry. So I guess
From
that,
Kobe on his, I'd
I
like
can
to
call
see
him, sorry, I
language. I
just
think
wanna read
language
it.
makes a big difference.
Okay, yeah, I just want to learn more, because I don't know about this otherwise, as full disclosure, to share my, lack of
yeah. So
understanding.
I just want to be clear, like, staff isn't doing anything, we're doing our own
Correct.
research. I just want to be clear for staff, so staff knows that they're not doing anything.
Yeah, this is
Correct.
not for staff
Yeah.
to do.
Okay.
Yeah, this is for personal learning. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And so we have our future board agenda items. 2 are coming up. The first read of board policy and administrative regulations series 6000, and approval of revisions for the California School Board Association board policy updates. Are there any other items, blue slips done, for future agenda items? Okay. All right, well then we will not see each other for a while, and have a sweet and savory next few weeks. And with that, we'll close the Washington Unified Board of Education meeting. Later, in replay, it is 11:05 PM, and I forgot a motion. So who would like to end this meeting? Okay, so the motion was made by Board Trustee Cruz. It was seconded by Board Trustee Wong. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye.
Good night, Gracie.